Welcome everybody to LTMB Live. Let the madness begin. We are who we are. You know who we are. Every time, every day. This is Tuesday, December 10th, 2019 now.
Sure about that, man?
Yeah, man. It's creeping along, man. We're going to be in 2020 before you know it.
Not only will we be in 2020 before we know it, but Christmas is 2 weeks away.
2 weeks, about 2 weeks, yeah.
I know it's different for me than it is for you, though.
Oh,
you know what I'm
kids?
saying? Much different. Much different.
Yeah, lots of planning involved and all that. Yeah. Haven't put up a tree yet, nothing like that. But anyway, yeah, that is coming. But what also is coming is a whole lot of drama as well. Lots of things have happened over the last few days since we last broadcasted Thursday of last week. Had another House impeachment hearing in the House Judiciary Committee. And then today, I'm sure people are aware of it by now, that the House Democrats drafted 2 articles of impeachment, which we will get to. Got some stuff to get to beforehand, but we definitely will get to that. Also, some other things have happened. That we have a full plate for us tonight. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope Live. We did hear from the one viewer we have on Twitch who confirmed that he was the viewer on Twitch. Yeah.
Oh, because he probably heard us.
Yeah, he heard us.
He was like,
last time. He's like, yo,
that's me.
That's me, man. I just want to let y'all know.
You know what? We have to acknowledge that one person.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's ride or die right there. Or maybe he's just, maybe he's on Twitch, routinely.
Yeah, some people are just like, they live on certain social media platforms, and it's more convenient for them to stay on that media platform, regardless of what they're doing. He might be a gamer.
True. Could be. Maybe, I wonder if he found us on Twitch.
Could be. That's a possibility.
That would be interesting. But anyway, we got lots to talk about, like I said. We are going to... We're going to begin with the House impeachment proceedings, the hearing that was that we saw yesterday, on Monday, December 9th. And of course, again, this was in the House Judiciary Committee. And this time along, actually not unlike the last hearing that they had in the House Judiciary Committee last week, there were no fact witnesses. And of course, something that Republican members of the committee bemoans. They want fact witnesses. They want to conduct their own investigation. They want to hear from these witnesses. But that's not how it's going. So who we had testifying was the counsel for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as well on these particular counsels. So that would be the testimony of the Democratic counsel is Daniel Goldman, and then the Republican counsel is Steve Castor. So first, what we wanted to begin with is Republican obstructionism. Okay, so just to set that up, and really before I even get to that, it was about 5 to 10 seconds into the proceedings, as soon as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, as soon as he began things, gavelled the proceedings in. 5 to 10 seconds later, somebody objected. A Republican member.
Ain't nothing happened yet.
Nothing happened. Just objected. Just out of nowhere. Then there was some kind of, protester saying that, he liked Donald Trump. No, Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong.
We voted for him.
We voted,
people.
Yeah,
That was somebody from InfoWars.
Oh, I'm very surprised.
Here's the thing. If he would have been saying something different, than what Republicans would have been saying, I would have been like, I don't care where you're from. Mm-hmm. If you are saying something different than like the leaders of a party, the establishment, all right, protest, because Code Pink does that.
Right.
So different protesters show up to events like this and protest, which is fine. But usually they're saying something different.
Yeah, he's saying the same
thing. He was saying
but he's just shouting it out, and he's not part of the proceedings. So anyway, to kind of set up where a lot of the Republican angst was about, or what it was about. So you had at the beginning presentations that were given to the committee, and that was again by the Republican counsel and by the Democratic counsel. they were not there as witnesses. Now, the Republican counsel was there as the opening presenter and as a witness as well. On the Democratic side, you had Barry Burke, who was the presenter. He was not a witness. The witness that they had was the other Democratic counsel, who is Daniel Goldman. So this is something that the Republican members of the committee were really, really angry about, because they didn't, I was going to say they didn't understand. No, they understood. But they tried to make it seem as though this was very improper for a witness to then be able to come on the side of the committee members and ask questions of the witnesses. So that was something that they were, like I said, really, really angry about. And they tried to, like I said, create a spectacle around that. So this is just some of the obstructionism that we saw. A lot of points of order, a lot of just interrupting, blurting things out. This is just a little bit of that.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, sir,
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman is not recognized for parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Chairman, what is
The gentleman is not recognized.
We're going to ignore the rules
We are
and
not-
allow witnesses to ask the questions. Then
Gentlemen will
how many
suspend.
other rules are you just going to disregard?
Gentlemen will suspend. Parliamentary inquiries are not in order at this time.
Well, how about a point of order?
Point of order.
This is not appropriate to have a witness
have a point of
be a
order? I do.
questioner
I have a point
of
of order, Mr.
somebody
Chairman.
that was a witness
Gentlemen-
when he was.
The gentleman will suspend.
It's just wrong.
State your point of order.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
There is no rule nor precedent for anybody being a witness and then getting
is
to
not a
come up
point of
and
order.
question. And so
I have ruled
we
that-
would, the
is
point
not-
of order is he's inappropriate to be up here asking questions.
That is not a point of order. He's here in accordance with Rule 66. With
How much money do you have to give to get to do that?
The gentleman will state a point of order if he has one.
Yes, the point of order is this. We operate by rules. If there's nothing specifically in the rule permitting this, we go by precedent. It is unprecedented for a person to come and sit, who you've described as a witness, to then return to the bench and begin
The gentleman
questioning.
has stated-
That is a point of order.
The gentleman has stated. Is that a point of order? That is not a point of order.
Notice how the last gentleman said that it's unprecedented. Once Nadler said it's not against the rules, and he stated the rule.
Right.
He didn't have to, but he did state the rule. But as the last gentleman said, he said it's unprecedented. He didn't say it's against the rules. Now, maybe it's unprecedented because this situation is unprecedented.
Right.
We have never gone through something like this before.
And these were, again, the rules that, of course, the Republicans did not agree to. They voted them, or they tried to vote them down. But the Democratic Party, they held a vote on these procedures, and this was one of the procedures. Now, the Republicans, if they had another member, which they did. Now, they did have another member of the council, and that was Ashley Hurt-Callen. Now, if they chose to have Ashley Hurt-Callen appear to present the case, just like Barry Burke did, it would have been fine. She would not have to have been sworn in, just like Barry Burke was not sworn in. They were not considered witnesses. It would have been fine. But they had, the Republican Party, they had Steve Castor do both, be the presenter and then the witness as well. So, again, this is just the GOP doing things, obstructionism, just is completely typical. Okay, let's go on with the testimony. So the first clip that we're going to go to is Steve Castor, who again is the GOP counsel. So what Steve Castor is trying to convey here is that President Trump actually did not ask for an investigation into the Bidens.
Isn't it the fact that President Trump, in his call with President Zelensky, said that he heard that former Vice President Joe Biden had stopped the prosecution of his son? Is that correct, sir? Yes or no?
It says the other thing. There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution.
Well, that is correct. He said he stopped the prosecution.
Point of order. He's entitled to answer the question fully, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman
Have you seen that?
not recognized.
There's a video of the former VP. I think that's what the president's referring to. He was at the Council on Foreign Relations, and it was a little bit of a, the former VP was a little bit audacious in how he described. He went over to the.
I'm only asking you what it says on the transcript. Is that what it says, sir?
it says the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son.
And that Biden stopped the prosecution. It says that, correct?
That's what it says here, yes.
And then it also says, it goes on to say, President Trump asked President Zelensky if you can look into it, correct? Is that the words? If you can look into it, correct?
That's what it says. And then he says,
So President Trump, am I right? President Trump was asking Ukrainian President Zelensky to have the Ukrainian officials look into Vice President Joe Biden, correct? Is that correct? Yes or no?
I don't think the record supports that.
It doesn't say, can you look into it? President Trump is not asking him to say that?
I don't think it supports that. I think it's ambiguous.
This almost reminds me of, he is like the embodiment of the House Committee's Minority Report.
Right.
That said Biden's name was just mentioned in passing.
We're going to get to that as well. Because he mentions a similar type of narrative. But this should be absolutely simple because all you have to do is actually read and comprehend. So if he can't do the basic reading of what the summary of the phone call, if he can't do that basic reading and then comprehend what was actually said, it says you can look into it. If you can look into it, that's basically what we all know. What if you can look into it means. Nobody in their right mind does not know what that means. It means, can you look into it? Can you do some investigating? Can you do something for me? Find out some information. But he says that's ambiguous.
What about outside the phone call? Don't we have instances outside of the phone call where Trump made his intentions pretty clear?
Very clear.
Many times he's done this in media appearances and during media interviews. He states that the Bidens are stole cold corrupt. They stole billions from both Ukraine and China, and they needed to be investigated.
He invited China to investigate the Bidens.
China. So, I mean, it's like, if we're just looking at the phone call, it's enough there. But even outside of the phone call, we have straight from the horse's mouth that was the intent. Right. And just recently, in a media interview, like yesterday or a couple of days ago, Donald Trump was talking about how Rudy Giuliani had all this stuff that was about to come out. He's been doing work over there. All this evidence that's about to be uncovered. Right. He uncovered all this evidence.
Right. Rudy Giuliani has recently been in Ukraine.
Yeah. And speaking of Giuliani, he was mentioned 2 or 3 times on the phone call. He was supposed to be like one of the point men.
Yeah, the go-between.
Yeah, the go-between. So
it's ridiculous, man. It's not ambiguous.
This is just for... He knows what he's there to do.
Yeah.
He's there to provide media sound bites for Trump-friendly media.
Right. And
the media that caters to Trump's audience.
All right. So in the second clip, we're going to go to... Okay, so in this clip, previous Ukraine support is mentioned, and that is from the Democratic Counsel, Barry Burke. And this is how, again, Steve Castor chooses to respond to that.
President Trump supported Ukraine with aid and otherwise in both 2017 and 2018, correct?
Yeah, President Trump has done a lot for Ukraine.
That's not, yes. And, sir, but isn't it correct that President Trump did not raise anything about Hunter Biden and his father, Vice President Joe Biden, in 2017 or 2018? He only did it the year before his election in 2020 when both he and Vice President Joe Biden were leading candidates. Isn't that true, sir?
I think what happened is the president saw this video of the former VP, and I think it coalesced in his mind.
Sir, please answer my question. He didn't raise any of these issues in 2017 or 2018.
I don't know that he did or he didn't. I mean, that is not something that we've looked at.
You have no evidence that he did, did you?
No, but I have no evidence he did not. I mean, this video is pretty.
All right, sir. Let me ask you.
The video is pretty remarkable. Yeah. A video that has been widely available since the footage was put out there.
When was that? When was
2018?
January.
The beginning. So
2018. So we're almost at 2 years now. We're almost at 2 years.
But hey, Trump may not have seen that video until recently. But
he said it finally coalesced when he saw the video.
But let's just say Trump had no clue about the video, right? But Republicans did.
Of course they did.
So, like, to just focus on Trump in this instance is kind of disingenuous, because Republicans not only knew about the video, they understood the circumstances surrounding what Joe Biden said in that video.
Right,
so we can't just say, well, and in this particular moment, Castor can't just say, well, this all has to do with this Trump right here. Mm-hmm. And Trump's perspective or Trump's view of what Biden said in that video, as if he doesn't have other Republicans to consult with.
Right. Look, I don't buy that Trump was not aware of this video before 2018. I mean, before 2019, this current year. I don't think anybody's going to buy that. So the fact that there was support and aid given to Ukraine in 2017 and 2018, in which you have to point to what Republican talking points are. One of them being that President Trump feels a certain type of way about delivering foreign aid. You know, he feels kind of unsure about it, kind of weary about it. He's not comfortable with the idea, especially when it comes to Ukraine, who is the most or one of the most corrupt countries in the world. But he was okay with it in 2017. He was okay with it in 2018. But then 2019 came right around the time that former VP Joe Biden announced his candidacy for president in 2020. Right around that time, that's when this whole effort began. And then you have the withholding of the aid, and again, this new narrative that, hey, well, Trump doesn't really feel too good about delivering this aid. It's all ridiculous. If Trump really felt that way, it would have been evidence in 2018 and 2017, but it wasn't.
But see, the counter argument to that would be what? The Republicans would they already have offered this as a counter argument, but that Trump was trying to vet Zelensky, this newly elected president, to make sure he was on the up and up, up and up, and making sure Zelensky understood that corruption, was a big problem, and so they had to vet him. But that still makes no sense because Zelensky's just one guy.
Right. All right. So next video we have is you already kind of
alluded to it.
The prior defense, saying that it was made in passing. The remark about the Bidens, I believe, was made in passing. Well, this is Steve Castor's, in his own words, saying the same thing.
Was it U.S. policy on July 26 to request that Ukraine investigate former Vice President Joe Biden?
I think you're reading a little too much into, some of the 8 lines. I don't think the president was requesting an investigation into Joe Biden. He just mentions an offhand comment.
Sir, is that a no? It was not U.S. policy to look into Joe Biden?
Yeah, but you're presuming that it then at some point became U.S. policy to investigate Joe Biden, and I don't think that's the case.
That's amazing.
Wait a second. Wait a second. So Castor says that he is presuming that it was U.S. policy, but that is exactly what Republicans have been arguing this entire time, all throughout this impeachment inquiry process, that it was U.S. policy.
The official U.S. It was no back channel politics or anything like that.
This was good for
foreign policy.
This was good for the country.
Good for the country,
because
and it was appropriate.
Once you present a case where a United States official, in this case the president and his associates, are trying to influence the policy of another country, and you are justifying that is U.S. policy. You are saying this is proper U.S. policy, and that's what they have been arguing this whole time. There was nothing improper about it. No. This was based on Trump's apprehension.
Mm-hmm. And they had official players that were in this appropriate channel of foreign policy as well. They had Volker, they had Sondland, they had Perry, of course, the former national security advisor, John Bolton, Pompeo. You have all these official players, so of course this was not an irregular channel. But that was a good question, but the way that Steve Castor chooses to defend against that is saying that Biden was actually only mentioned as an offhand remark. Just an offhand remark. It wasn't specifically about Biden, even though Biden was specifically broached by the President of the United States. All right, so the next Man, these make me laugh, man. Again, this is Steve Castor again. Rudy Giuliani is brought up, and Rudy Giuliani's actions and his words are brought up, and this is it's partly how Steve Castor chooses to kind of dismiss and separate Giuliani from President Trump.
This is dated May 9th, 2019. Before the call, Mr. Giuliani said he plans to travel to Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, in the coming days and wants to meet with the nation's president-elect to urge him to pursue inquiries that, and then it continues, that allies of the White House contend could yield new information about two matters of intense interest to Mr. Trump. One is the origin of the special counsel's investigation, goes on to describe it. New sentence. The other is the involvement of former Vice President Joe Biden's son. And Mr. Giuliani was very explicit when he was interviewed. He said, and this isn't foreign policy. I'm now quoting the words that are highlighted. It says, it'll be very, very helpful to my client. My only client is the President of the United States. He's the one I have an obligation to report to him what happened regarding the Ukraine. Mr. Giuliani continued his pressure on President Zelensky. In this one, it's actually a tweet that he put out on June 21st, 2019, roughly a month before the call. He says, new president of Ukraine, still silent on investigation of Ukrainian interference in 2016 election and alleged Biden bribery of the prior president. And again, sir, as you said, the Ukrainians knew that Mr. Giuliani had the ear of his client, President Trump. Isn't that correct, sir? Is that correct, sir? Yes or no?
Giuliani was doing some things out here, and then he became involved with the official channel, with Volker, with Sondland, and at that meeting on July 19th, Volker, counseled against the perspective Giuliani was taking.
Now that's revisionist history, because he said that at some point Giuliani became a part of the official channel. How did this all begin? It began with President Trump telling the group that went over to see the inauguration of President Zelensky in Ukraine. It began with President Trump instructing them to go see Giuliani, talk to Giuliani if you want a meeting between me and President Zelensky at the White House. It began with that. So Giuliani has been an integral part of this whole process from the beginning. And his own words now, too. And I like how his own words were showing up on the screen in these different articles, his own tweets. But Giuliani himself said that this was not foreign policy. This was not foreign policy. So Giuliani himself said it was not foreign policy.
Why is that? Because who did he say he was over in Ukraine in behalf of?
His only client, President Trump. So this was a personal matter. This was not U.S. foreign policy.
And beside the fact that this whole Ukrainian issue is potentially an impeachable offense, look at how Donald Trump, along with his associates who were involved in this, especially Giuliani, look at what they're doing to the perception of Ukraine and all this. Uh-huh. Or look at how Ukraine is viewing all this rhetoric coming from Republicans and Donald Trump's, right-hand man, his goon, Rudy Giuliani. They're being talked about in a certain way as if they're just this object to be pushed around in order to absolve Donald Trump. Think about what would you think if you were a Ukrainian ambassador, Ukrainian official within the Ukraine government? What would you be thinking right now? What's going on here? And these individuals are saying this under oath.
Yeah, they're trying to dirty up Ukraine even more. And especially with this new administration, which is supposed to be a reforming administration. This is supposed to be President Zelensky, the reformer. Somebody that actually wants to do something about the corruption in Ukraine.
So you're saying,
and here we have the United States, the official channel of the United States, the U.S. government. This current administration is talking about how dirty they are.
So you're saying that this could potentially screw up a relationship.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so Now we're going to hear from the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Doug Collins, who is a Republican, of course. So it's going to be a familiar narrative that we hear. And this is Doug Collins saying that there was only one quid pro quo, and it wasn't President Trump taking part in it.
You understand what quid pro quo is, correct?
I do.
You understand what asking for something in exchange for something actually means, correct?
I do.
You know about the conversation of Mr. Biden when he asked and he said, I'm not going to give you the $1 billion. You know about that conversation, correct? You want me to read it to you, or do you know it?
One second. Are you talking about in 2015?
No, I'm talking about the one from the national, where you did I'll read it to you since you're having trouble. As I remember going over to the Ukraine, convincing our team, our leaders, convincing them that we should provide for loan guarantees. I went over, I guess, the 12th or 13th time to Kiev. I was supposed to announce that there was $1 billion loan guarantee. And I got a commitment from Poroshenko and they said that they would take action against the state prosecutor. They didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. I said, nah, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have authority. You have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him, laughter. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm getting ready to be leaving here. And I think about 6 hours. I looked at them and said, I'm leaving here in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. Did he ask for something, request something, and hold something of value?
He did. George Kent testified that was...
I think I'll do what you did. George Kent testified this. I'm asking about not George Kent. I'm asking about this question.
Right, but it's important context.
It's not. Answer this question. Did he or did he not? Either Joe Biden's a liar, telling a story to make people impressed, or he actually did this. Which is it?
He did it pursuant to U.S. official policy.
So he did it in withholding, actual dollars, actual thing, holding this out there. So Joe Biden, of everybody that we discussed about, is the only one that's done a quid pro quo. He's the only one that's used taxpayer dollars to actually threaten a foreign government. And yet we're sitting here pretending that this is not happening. We're sitting here pretending that a president of the United States now would not be concerned. Look, you look at it this way. Joe Biden's a terrible candidate. He can destroy himself on the campaign trail, but he can't get by this. And it doesn't matter who brings it up. It doesn't matter who does it, because this is what happened.
So Collins is doing this performative outrage, right? Mm-hmm. Over one thing. All right, two things. I'll give him two. Terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. Terms and conditions. Usually when there are aid packages set up for other countries and Congress approves them, there are terms and conditions to that country or for that country to get that aid. Right. There are terms and conditions in place before that country can get that aid. And these terms and conditions that Biden was bragging about, these terms and conditions were approved by Congress, not by Biden unilaterally. Before the aid was approved, all members of Congress knew about the terms and conditions, knew about the prosecutor. The other countries involved knew about the prosecutor that needed to go. The IMF knew about the prosecutor that needed to go. This wasn't some underground Biden on some personal mission. Right. Again, so he didn't actually point out a quid pro quo here because he didn't point out how Biden specifically personally benefited from these actions that he was bragging about. And again, that's Biden. He was probably overstating what he did.
Possibly.
But that doesn't even matter. Even if he wasn't overstating what he did and he was just, poking his chest out like he does at the debates, like I did this when I was vice president for Obama. Right. So,
and again, it's more than just saying that this was official foreign policy, because as Republicans have stated in this matter around now with the security assistance being withheld from Ukraine, they're saying that was official foreign policy as well. But they're only coming to say that now that President Trump got caught, now that the cat's out the bag, because that wasn't conveyed to the State Department. That wasn't conveyed to the Defense Department. They didn't know why the congressionally approved money was being withheld from Ukraine. Again, it was congressionally approved. President Trump doesn't even have the authority to hold it back. especially not for any legitimate reason, because it was already congressionally approved. And because it took so long for them to actually release the funds, there was another congressional act that had to happen so that Ukraine could get all the money. So this is not the same thing. And again, like you were pointing out, Biden was not on a solo mission. This was not a personal mission. He had the backing of the United States, not some informal channel, not a personal attorney of Obama's or his own. No, he had the backing of his own official government. He had the IMF, like you said, the West, like you said, the parliament in Ukraine. Everybody knew who Shokin was, and everybody wanted him out because he was not actually investigating corruption into Burisma. So just to jump ahead a little bit, Daniel Goldman brings up exactly what was going on then and how this was very typical of when funds are approved to go overseas, security assistance or what have you.
There is absolutely conditionality on aid routinely in all sorts of different ways, but it's done through official policy. And these anti-corruption benchmarks that you're referencing here was a condition of Ukraine getting the aid. But in May, the Department of Defense, in conjunction with the other interagencies, certified that Ukraine was making the necessary progress on anti-corruption efforts to merit the aid.
And yet the aid was not released, correct?
The aid was subsequently held. It was supposed to be released. DOD announced the release, and then President Trump held the aid without explanation.
So, again, that's just a little bit of context to why it was appropriate for Biden being the point man to withhold that aid. And there's always conditionality, like he's saying, when it comes to foreign assistance. Like you said, terms and conditions. This is something that is very regular. But the thing about this particular situation is that nobody knew that there were terms and conditions. Nobody knew that President Trump had a term and condition because the aid was already congressionally approved. Everything was already set. It wasn't like Congress was waiting on something to happen and then saying, well, we're not going to do it until, they take care of this. Or the State Department, or the Pentagon.
There were terms and conditions, just some unofficial.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Some official terms and conditions. The State Department, like Daniel Goldman said, had already certified that Ukraine had made enough moves to signify that they were serious about anti-corruption measures. This was in May. So, again, the withholding of the security assistance was unknown. What the reason why was unknown to official members of the government that play a huge role in actually dispersing those funds.
Usually I don't approve of pointing the finger as a defense strategy, because that's what Collins was supposed to do. I would actually be fine with Collins doing that in that instance if he actually pointed to something that was a quid pro quo.
Yeah, if he
had something. If he had something, it wouldn't,
a contradiction.
A contradiction. It wouldn't be like, it wouldn't, speak to anything that Trump did, but it would offer some sort of point of hypocrisy.
Right.
Then it would make the entire impeachment inquiry seem a little spacious. Right. So yeah, if he actually pointed out something, I would actually been okay with it. But he didn't.
All right, moving along. All right, we're going to get to Representative Hank Johnson, and he is talking about how Ukraine, he's speaking with the Democratic counsel, Daniel Goldman, and just talking about Ukraine and how Goldman makes a point that Ukraine did realize that this was not an official request.
On May 9th, 2019, Rudy Giuliani, on behalf of his client, President Trump, spoke with a New York Times reporter about his planned trip to Ukraine. And on that trip, he planned to meet with President Zelensky, he said, and urged him to pursue investigations relating to the Bidens and to the debunked theory that Ukraine and not Russia interfered in the 2016 election. Isn't that correct?
That's right.
And Mr. Giuliani told the reporter that his trip was not about official U.S. foreign policy, and that the information he sought would be very, very helpful to his client, meaning it would be helpful to President Trump. Is that correct?
Yes, and if it's not official foreign policy, it would be helpful to President Trump's personal interests.
That's correct. And there is no doubt, Mr. Goldman, that investigations of the Bidens and the 2016 election meddling were, in fact, not about U.S. policy, but were about benefiting Trump's reelection, correct?
Yes, and even the Ukrainians realize that.
Man. Is this complicated? Is this complicated at all?
It's only complicated because of Republican attempts to make it blurry. But it's not complicated whatsoever.
But they're very feeble attempts. They're not very good at it.
No,
if they were, you know what? If they were good at it, I can see how people might be a bit confused and a bit like disoriented with all this information coming out, all this testimony, all this documentation, all these depositions. I can see how people could be confused, but the Republicans are not even good at deflection and obfuscation. So this is a pretty clear-cut case, and it's simple. So I don't know why anybody out here would think this whole impeachment inquiry process has been complicated or, too confusing for regular folk to understand. There's a lot of commentators on the left that have kind of made this case. You know what I'm saying? Some of our favorite ones.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. People that can be leaned on, typically, for informing people in the right way.
Accurately. Breaking things down, making complicated things, more simple for the audience to understand. In this case, honestly, this is pretty simple. It's just a lot to take in.
Yeah.
It's actually not that complicated. It's just so much information to take in. That's really the only thing that makes this, I guess, so daunting is the amount.
Yeah.
But
because there's a lot of players in the game. There's a lot of people that can testify. There's a lot of information, like you said. But the premise is so basic.
Other than that, it's pretty simple.
But again, the point that was made was very important. And that point being that Ukrainians knew. They came to know that this request was personal for President Donald Trump and not an official request, not an act of foreign policy. And again, Rudy Giuliani said that this was not foreign policy. But why we know that Ukraine figured it out, and it really doesn't matter at which point that they figured it out, but they obviously did figure it out, because if they didn't, then why weren't investigations announced? If this was an official act, if this was something that needed to be done, and not just done for the United States, but for Ukraine, they needed to announce these investigations. They needed to start these investigations into Burisma, the Bidens. They needed to start an investigation into whether they themselves, Ukrainians, had something to do with meddling in the 2016 presidential election.
Yeah, I couldn't let you go without. I couldn't. You had to laugh a little bit too.
I know but they, again, if they didn't figure it out that this was personal, then they would have commenced. I mean, the investigations would have commenced. At least the announcement of them, but no such thing happened. It's ridiculous. All right, going to Representative Ken Buck, Republican on the committee. Ken Buck is trying to sell the idea that Ukraine did in fact meddle in the 2016 presidential election.
Mr. Castro, I want to ask you something. Have you seen this article from Politico dated January 11, 2017?
Yes, I have.
And the title of that article is Ukrainian Efforts to Sabotage Trump Backfire. Is that correct?
Yes.
I want to read you the second paragraph. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton's allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a Politico investigation found. Isn't it true that President Trump had a legitimate reason to request help from the Ukraine about the 2016 election. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that Russia didn't interfere. Of course they interfered. But the Ukraine officials tried to influence the election.
Yes.
Influence the election. He's using that word without any context here.
Yeah, I know. That was very purposeful.
There's nothing preventing members of another government from stating a preference.
Nope.
There's nothing preventing them from doing that. And if he can't, first of all, he can't show any coordination to get Ukraine to do that. Number one, like realistically, another country stating who their preference is, how does that impact the election? Like, they're not directly involved in some sort of campaign fund,
Right.
or directly involved in some sort of, I guess, a campaign distributing information.
It has nothing to do with actually spending money in our elections, trying to sway public support in any way, using actual funds.
And what he's talking about, he didn't use the word operative. He didn't use the word consultant. He used another word. I don't want to get the wrong word. What did he use?
I can't remember what
he used. Some word in reference to a campaign operative that was working with the Ukraine government to damage Donald Trump. He's kind of being indirect there. What he's actually talking about is Manafort. And he's talking about Ukraine releasing information on not Donald Trump, but Donald Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort. That's what he was talking about, a supposed operative that worked with the Hillary Clinton campaign, helping the Ukrainian government release information that's damaging to Donald Trump. Indirectly, because it was about Paul Manafort. In actuality, Ukraine was already investigating Paul Manafort. All this person was doing was trying to get information on investigations that were already taking place, which is actually not illegal. That's just like opposition research. That's all that is.
And here in the United States of America, I've come to believe that many people are very interested in the First Amendment, freedom of speech, right?
Right.
Very, very, very interested in it. They want to support that to no end. But simply that there were members in the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian officials that used their free speech to speak about their opinion on U.S. candidates, especially noting the inflammatory language that Trump used when it concerns Ukraine and Crimea and Russia. They had a particular opinion about President Trump because, of course, he offended them. So it doesn't, it makes total sense that they would have that opinion. But again, like you said, it's not improper, one, and it's not unusual for people in foreign countries, even if they have actual positions, elected positions, appointed positions, what have you. It's not unusual for them to actually say something about potential candidates in another country.
And this is a special case too, right? And I'm just surprised, Democratic counsel or individuals that are on any of these committees haven't brought this up concerning Donald Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who helped get a president elected in Ukraine that ultimately got indicted for treason. So of course individuals in Ukraine, especially in the government, would be like, man, fuck this dude Trump. Like, look who he has as his campaign manager. This is the same guy that helped get a president elected that was a treasonous president. Right. So hell no. That's like, obviously, like, they got to be against Trump, because if Trump gets elected, it's almost like I'm scared as a Ukrainian official. I'm scared because I don't know what's going to happen now.
Right. All right. So in the next clip, we have Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat from California. He is asking questions of Daniel Goldman, the Democratic counsel, asking very pointed questions about who did this, really censoring this argument on who's really at the center of it.
Mr. Goldman, who sent Rudy Giuliani to Ukraine to smear Joe Biden?
President Trump.
Who fired the anti-corruption ambassador in Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch?
President Trump.
Who told Ambassador Sondland and Ambassador Volker to work with Rudy Giuliani on Ukraine?
President Trump.
Who told Vice President Pence to not go to President Zelensky's inauguration?
President Trump.
Who ordered his own chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, to withhold critical military assistance for Ukraine?
President Trump.
Who refused to meet with President Zelensky in the Oval Office?
President Trump.
Who ignored on July 25 his own National Security Council's anti-corruption talking points?
President Trump.
Who asked President Zelensky for a favor?
President Trump.
Who personally asked President Zelensky to investigate his political rival, Joe Biden?
President Trump.
Who stood on the White House lawn and confirmed that he wanted Ukraine to investigate Vice President Biden?
President Trump.
Who stood on that same lawn and said that China should also investigate Vice President Biden?
President Trump.
As to anything that we do not know in this investigation, who has blocked us from knowing it?
President Trump in the White House.
So as it relates to President Trump, is he an incidental player or a central player in this scheme?
President Trump is the central player in this scheme.
All right. Now, is any of that information disputed? Is anything, all those questions that were asked, is any of that disputed? No.
No.
Maybe the Republicans can try to dispute that information. Maybe if, you know what would have been more interesting? Now, it would have took longer and probably it wouldn't have fit into 5 minutes of Eric Swalwell's time. But it would have been more interesting for him to not ask those questions of Daniel Goldman. Ask those questions to Steve Castor and see how Steve Castor responds.
I'm guessing he would, Castor. I'm guessing he would try to, duck and dodge the question.
Dodge a little bit.
So even if Castor doesn't answer those questions straightforward, at least presenting those questions to him would at least elicit some sort of reaction, right? That would be good for the cameras in that moment.
Right.
But we were messaging back and forth, and we were kind of both like, man, Swalwell, like, he's on point.
He doesn't mess around when it comes to these committee hearings.
When it comes to these committee hearings, he is on point. I'm like, him as a presidential candidate.
Oh, no.
Straight dork.
No.
It was
straight
bad. Goofball.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it was not good.
But this seems to be his lane. And when he
is.
stays in it, he shines.
Right. And this is not the only time that he has, like you said, shined. He has been one of the strongest members of these committees, asking questions of of anybody, actually. All right, so moving on. We only have a few more to go. Okay, now we have Representative Joe Neguse. And Joe Neguse has questions for both council members.
Mr. Goldman, after 2 years of investigation, the special counsel concluded that Russia interfered in our elections in, quote, sweeping and systemic fashion. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Castor, is that right?
Yes.
And Mr. Goldman, am I correct that 0 intelligence agencies have publicly stated that Ukraine attacked our elections in 2016? Is that right?
That's right. I don't even think that the minority is alleging that the Ukrainian government systematically in any meaningful way interfered. I think this is just based on a couple of news articles.
Mr. Castor, correct?
The president had a good faith belief there were some significant Ukrainian officials.
I hear you, and you've said that previously. I guess I'm asking you.
We haven't said that the Ukrainian government.
And there are no intelligence agencies in the United States that have publicly stated that Ukraine has attacked our elections, right? You're not testifying that that's the case.
I'm not, right, correct.
Right. And in fact, President Trump's former Homeland Security Advisor, Tom Bossert, said that the idea of Ukraine, for example, hacking the DNC server, was, quote, not only a conspiracy theory, it is completely debunked. That's President Trump's Homeland Security Advisor that said those words that you see on the screen to my right. Is that right, Mr. Goldman?
Yes, I saw that interview.
Mr. Castor, you saw that interview?
I'm aware of it, yes.
In fact, isn't it true that none of the witnesses that appeared before your committee testified in support of the theory that Ukraine somehow interfered in our elections? Is that right, Mr. Goldman?
That is absolutely correct.
Mr. Castor?
That's correct, but again...
Thank you. No witnesses testified in support... I'll reclaim my time. No witnesses testified in support of that theory before your committee. Mr. Goldman, isn't it also true that your committee, in fact, received testimony indicating that there is evidence that Russia is, in part, perpetrating this false theory that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 elections because Russia wants to deflect blame for its own involvement?
That is correct. We had evidence of that, and I think that it's very important to emphasize what is evidence and what is pure media reports or speculation, because there is no evidence in our investigation that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election.
This is a small part. A small part that's buried deep. Now, it's very, very deep, buried very deep. I almost feel sorry for Castor.
Almost
just
a little bit.
Just a little bit, but
because he's put in a very tough position.
He's put in,
but he put himself
there.
Yeah,
but like, again, like that little piece of me that feels sorry for him.
Right.
It's overshadowed. It's overtaken by just frustration. Like, I wanted to stick this dude's head in a porta potty toilet.
Because he can't answer questions, not directly. Again, none of this information is disputed, but you see somebody that is on the Republican side of things doing their best to say, okay. Yeah,
I think like the major point that was brought up by Democratic counsel was the fact that Republicans have not floated this argument. Republicans on the intelligence committees have not even floated the Ukrainian argument. This is not something that they have been protesting. Like they haven't protested this. They have not come out with this like narrative themselves until now.
Right.
And like you said, evidence from articles is not evidence, and conspiracy is not evidence. Or what he said, what did Castro say? A good faith something?
Right.
Say they had a good faith suspicion or good faith something.
I think it's a good faith suspicion.
Something. A good faith suspicion. I was like, okay, that's great, but where is your like evidence? And if there is evidence there, that's fine. What you do is you ask Congress to select a special counsel to investigate what you are suspicious of. That's fine. It's not the suspicion, it's how he went about trying to validate this suspicion, or how he used this suspicion to engage in crimey behavior. That's the issue here, and I'm glad he brought up the Homeland Security Advisor too.
Oh, Bossert. Yeah. This is how messy the GOP argument is. This newfound GOP argument in which Ukraine must have did some things, right? This is how messy it is, because as we've seen through some of these clips, as we have seen in many hearings actually, and then outside of the hearings as well, we've seen Republicans point to articles. We've seen Republicans point to that Ukrainian officials said some things publicly about President Trump when he wasn't President Trump, then when he was candidate Trump. And that amounts to, I guess, meddling, right? Yeah, they even bring up Alexandra Chalupa, and the DNC former contributor. Well, not a contributor, but she was a consultant. Yeah, that's a better word for that. So that's their argument that they made multiple times throughout this hearing that was just yesterday on Monday, right? Now, how does that jive with the actual phone call? Because President Trump didn't bring up that there were Ukrainians talking badly about him in 2016. What he brought up was that the DNC server was in Ukraine. He brought up CrowdStrike. What the hell does that have to do with Ukrainian officials talking badly about him? How does those two things mix? They can't even get on message. They can't even stay on the same narrative. I will allow, okay, let's say the Republicans, okay, because we've seen it. They say Ukrainian officials, they shouldn't have used their, well, I mean, of course, they're not in the United States of America, but they shouldn't have used freedom of speech. They shouldn't have used that. They shouldn't have talked badly about candidate Trump. Okay, let's say I agree with you. They shouldn't have done it. Cool. What the hell does that have to do with CrowdStrike? What does that have to do with the DNC server? Nothing. And you see that they haven't said anything about the DNC server. So they're saying things about how Ukrainian officials said some negative remarks about President Trump 2016. Cool. But President Trump didn't bring that up in the phone call. He brought up CrowdStrike. He brought up the server. So these two messages are not the same.
They're offering excuses and offering a rationale that Trump himself has not offered. Why is that?
Why is that? Because they're trying to they're trying to do anything they can to defend Trump from guilt. But it's not working.
Don't offer excuses for someone else when they are not that person you're offering excuses for hasn't even stated those same excuses.
Right. If they were they would have been on task if in this hearing, instead of talking about Ukrainian officials saying some things about President Trump, they would have talked about CrowdStrike. If they talked about CrowdStrike, if they talked about the DNC server, at least they would be on the same page as President Trump was in that phone call to Zelensky. But they didn't say nothing about that because they don't want to travel down that lane because it's ridiculous because that's a conspiracy theory and there's no evidence to support that.
Hey, they can have it. There's no issue with them just having a theory or having a suspicion or whatever else. That's not the problem. The problem is if you do have a suspicion, if you do have some sort of, a gripe that you can actually point to, material evidence to point to, then open up an investigation. Do it.
Yeah, officially.
Officially, you could do it.
But
you have the power to.
As Ukrainians said, and we talked about this months ago now, Ukrainians have never fielded a formal request for an investigation from the United States government.
That's interesting.
All right, moving on. All right, so we only have one more, and this is from Representative Greg Stanton, Democrat on the committee. And here he is talking about the reason for closed-door testimony.
Mr. Goldman, why did the investigative committees decide to conduct initial depositions behind closed doors?
The best investigative practice when you're doing a fact-finding mission is to keep the information closed. And the reason is exactly what I described earlier with Ambassador Sondland, who, first of all, the day before his deposition, he spoke with Secretary Perry about his testimony. That is the type of tailoring that can happen when people are engaged in misconduct and they try to line up their stories. So if you keep the information closed, they can't line up their stories. And I think, frankly, part of the reason why Ambassador Volker and Ambassador Sondland's public hearing testimony was so different from their deposition testimony is because the initial depositions were in closed session before we then released all the transcripts to the public.
And this isn't unprecedented because in both the Nixon and Clinton impeachment inquiries, there were either closed-door depositions or grand jury proceedings at the beginning of the inquiries.
That's correct, nor is it unprecedented in Congress. This is actually a rule in the House rules that was passed by Republican Congresses. It was used in Benghazi. It was used by a number of committees for the past decade or so.
And for clarity, President Trump has received all procedural protections afforded to other presidents facing impeachment. Is that correct?
That is right. In the Judiciary Committee, he's had all of the options. Our inquiry was not the Judiciary Committee's investigation. That is where the president's ability to present evidence. Of course, if the president wanted to present evidence in the Intelligence Committee, he could have provided documents, he could have provided the witnesses that we asked for him, but he obstructed rather than cooperated.
The president was not denied the right to participate, quite the opposite. The president has chosen not to participate, and he has consistently tried to obstruct the impeachment investigation to ensure no one testifies against him, that no one produces a document that may incriminate him, and to engage in a cover-up to prevent the American people from learning the truth. I yield back.
Now, allow me for just a second, Mike. Allow me. Because we just heard some testimony from an experienced lawyer, an experienced attorney.
I know where you're going, but continue on, Mr. Gaillard.
Now, I remember some weeks back, we talked about this like a few weeks back.
Oh, yeah.
It originally came out, and I believe it was you. We have to give credit to you, Mike. Hold on. You passed the bar? Did you pass the bar? Did you pass the bar? You didn't? Law school? No.
Nowhere near it.
All right. Well,
I do drive by it probably every day.
You do?
I drive by the law school.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if anything like came into.
I think I must soak some things up in or somehow.
Okay.
Somehow.
Well, the reason I bring that up is I remember several weeks back us talking about this particular subject, closed door testimony, because you remember that whole busting in, breaking down the doors by a bunch of these Republicans and how they bum rushed the doors.
They bum rushed the secret dungeon.
Yeah.
They bum rushed the secret dungeon.
Yeah, down in the basement of the Capitol, and because they were really mad that they weren't privy to this testimony, how they were these proceedings were being done in secret. It kind of made it seem like there were no Republicans that were there to question witnesses, hear information, or anything like that. But of course, we knew that the Republican members of these committees were there. But again, when we were talking about the need for closed door testimony, you made the point that the reason why we needed, or the reason why they would choose to go this route in closed door testimony, which is not unprecedented. The reason why is so that
and approved by Republicans.
Yeah, approved by Republicans, used before countless times. But the reason why you made the point is because you don't want people trying to line up their stories together and then being able to craft some kind of excuse, some kind of defense. No, you want those, I guess, their depositions to be done in secret. And then once everything gets out and open, then they're going to be like, oh.
Then they'll be able to kind of point to discrepancies.
Yeah.
And as we pointed out as well a few weeks ago, we thought it was very strategic that they received Sondland's deposition first. Or they didn't receive it, they asked for it. They requested a deposition from him first. Yeah. So they knew he was going to lie.
Yeah. And as Goldman said, too, the first two that did testify was Kurt Volker and Sondland. And those were the only two where their original testimony, their original deposition was a little bit different than when they testified in public.
So that didn't happen with the other fact witnesses?
It didn't happen. It didn't happen with the other fact witnesses. They had to kind of change the story a little bit. Especially Sondland. But no reason for a closed door testimony. No, this was just an abuse of powers.
And I'm glad that Sondland mentioned that there were closed door depositions taken during the Benghazi investigations. Goldman, my bad. Okay. Goldman. And also, he didn't mention this, but Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, those depositions were taken behind closed doors as well.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pretty simple here. But Republicans are purposely trying to create some sort of controversy out of nothing, even though this happens all the time for this political process. Not only does it happen during political processes, it happens during actual pre-trial processes too. Mm-hmm. During an investigation, when indicted criminals strike plea agreements. When they strike that plea agreement, they give a deposition, which is in secret.
Correct.
Which gives up some other people involved in crimey behavior.
Now, does the defense? Now, if somebody is rolling over on somebody else, does the defense, the person that is being put on trial, does the defense get to say, hey, ho, you're holding the meeting in secret? You get no, I want to see. Can I?
Oh, you mean they didn't allow the criminal that got I guess outed.
Yeah.
I guess the person that got snitched on.
Yes.
They didn't allow that person to be a part of the snitcher's deposition.
Right. Or anybody that weren't members of the relevant committees as well. But yeah, this is again abuse of power. All right, so that's all the clips that we have from the House Judiciary Committee. My goodness, from the House Judiciary Committee on Monday, and that again featured the two of the members of the council, Democratic council and Republican council. So on Tuesday, breaking news: the House Democrats have drafted 2 articles of impeachment. And so, of course, they held a press conference and they were laying out the case to what exactly were the two articles of impeachment. And so the 2 articles are, the first article is abuse of power. and that is related to President Trump pressuring Ukraine, which is a foreign country, of course, to dig up dirt on a political rival while withholding congressionally approved security assistance and a meeting at the White House for President Zelensky. The second article is obstruction of Congress, for which President Trump refused to allow key witnesses to testify or produce any relevant documents to the committees. So, a little bit more information on that. It was a 9-page resolution that was drafted, and it does call for President Trump's removal. And so, related to the first article, it states, Donald J. Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in that, using the powers of his high office, President Trump solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to national security and the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. So, excuse me, concerning the second article of impeachment, the resolution states that Trump directed the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives pursuant to its sole power of impeachment. So, there was some thought that this process, and when it actually came down to the drafting of the articles of impeachment, that it would be more than two, and possibly it would include an obstruction of justice related to the Mueller investigation, in which through that Mueller investigation, the conclusion of it, we saw 10 clear cases of obstruction of justice committed by the President of the United States. That is not here. That was not included in these articles of impeachment. I don't believe, well, I don't believe Nancy Pelosi has stated why. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. But there were other Democrats that stated that kind of would muddy the waters a little bit. That would create a little bit more complexity to the issue. This is a clear case of abuse, a clear case of obstruction from the president. Not to say that with the Mueller investigation, it's not clear cases of abuse, of obstruction.
Yeah, and
I guess it's something that's
I think
unrelated.
those documented cases were kind of like, they didn't come to us like ongoing. As those things were ongoing, like they didn't come to the public in the way that they were investigated. Like there wasn't like this constant back and forth of information passing between what Mueller was doing and what we knew. It was always these little, like little explosions over the course of the investigation that gave us kind of some insight of what was going on. But we really didn't know about those 10 instances of obstruction.
Right. No.
Until the report came out. In this case, this is like a ongoing thing that we can like see real time. We can see what Trump is doing. We can see what the Republicans are doing. So I think that kind of supports your point. Yeah. That it's clear cut. Yeah. Because it's something that we actually see.
Yeah. And again, as much as Republican members of Congress want to try to refute key details, things that really are not refutable, I mean, they're doing their best to do it. But again, for some people, I guess it does muddy the waters. It makes things seem that they're unclear, but it's really not, and it's really not complex. Tomorrow on Wednesday night, I believe, starting at 7 p.m., that is when the House Judiciary Committee is going to hear first arguments on the articles of impeachment. And then it is presumed that next week it will come to a vote in the House Judiciary Committee. And then following that, of course, it's going to have to come to a full vote of Congress, of the House of Representatives.
I mean, we already know what the outcome is going to be, but Republicans know what the outcome is going to be as well. So why are they so scared? Why are they trying to obstruct this process? Why are they trying to prevent it from coming to a point where they have to make a decision? Again, we already know what decision they are going to make. So they should be fine. They should be secure, right? They shouldn't care what comes out, because at the end of the day, they're just going to absolve Trump. So why are they so scared for it to get to that point? the point of impeachment. Why?
Because the truth is not on their side. Guilt is on their side, and they know that. Again, they're doing their best to defend President Trump, but it's a mission that's I think it's a mission that's difficult, and again, they're not on the right side of this. Now, of course, like you said, this is eventually going to get to a place where President Donald Trump is impeached, and then it will go to a Senate trial. I did see some reports about how there is a difference of opinion about how the Senate trial should play out. I believe the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, according to reports, he wants this thing to go by very quickly. He wants a very quick process. But President Donald Trump wants this to play out. He wants this thing to become a spectacle. He wants this to be part of his re-election campaign.
I think he's wolfing. I think he's wolfing.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he's just poking his chest out and be like, yeah, I could take it. Yeah. I could take it. If you could take it, why are you obstructing?
Why are you obstructing? Why are you holding back documents? Why are you holding back testimony? If everything is on your side, then you would have just produced anything that was necessary. You could have played a role in the investigation, in the House investigation. You could have, but you chose not to. Now, when it comes to the Senate trial, President Donald Trump cannot be compelled to testify, and I don't believe that he will.
Oh, hell no.
It would definitely be a sight to see. And look, this is something that the Democratic Party, and again, I think they've made their case. Excuse me. I think they've made their case very well. But I believe that they're going to have to convey this particular point, because I guess a very key part of Republicans, of the Republican defense of Donald Trump, is that the congressionally approved security assistance was released without Ukraine doing anything about it. They did not have to announce any investigations. I need Congress, and of course, I need congressional Democratic senators. Okay, I need the Democratic senators who are going to be, well, no, because they're not going to be put on the case. Whoever's put on the case, and of course the House is going to play some role in that. But I need them to convey the point that it would have been improper. It would not have been appropriate for Ukraine to announce the investigations, because that is essentially what the Republican defense is, that nothing happened. They didn't have to do anything about it to get the money. So it would have been inappropriate. I need a yes or no answer. It would have been inappropriate for Zelensky or any other Ukrainian official to announce the investigations into the Bidens, into Burisma. It would have been improper.
And if it would have been improper to do it, then it is improper to set a specific agenda so that can take place.
Exactly. This is the point. This is the point that needs to be conveyed, because we've heard this defense from the Republican Party. When you hear Representative Jim Jordan, when you hear, I believe, Elise Stefanik, other members, they say the same thing.
Nunes,
they didn't have to do anything. Nunes, everybody says it. Ukraine did not have to do anything to get the money. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with that. And I have yet to hear anybody say it. As good as, Eric Swalwell has been, Joaquin Castro, Neguse, there are other, Ted Lieu, as good as a few of these House Democrats have been in these committees and in their questioning, I have not yet heard that pushback on this Republican defense. That's the point that they need to make.
I guess they just lose track of how many talking points they have to debunk. So they dropped the ball on that one.
Yes, that's point. Because that's huge. Because that is crafted by the Republican Party. Hey, nothing to see here because, hey, look, see this withheld money. Haha, see, nothing happened. They didn't have to announce any investigations. Let's go with that. Let's go with that. All right, so we'll see what happens. Of course, again, there's going to be more of this spectacle tomorrow night, and we'll be watching. Also, today, shortly after or during or what have you, but Some other news was announced, and that is that the Democratic Party has come to an agreement with the White House on the USMCA, which is the supposed replacement of NAFTA, the trade agreement. So it's a trade agreement with the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and it has been agreed upon. So there's going to have to be legislation that is drafted so that it could make its way through Congress. But yes, there is an agreement in principle. There's an agreement with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party on this front. So not to go, too far in it or to really go into too far of the details, because to be honest, I don't know a lot of the details. I know a little bit about it. I heard about the, because this deals with farming, it deals with the auto industry, of course. And one thing that I have read is that auto parts that are made through this agreement, the workers that are making these auto parts have to be paid at least $16 an hour. That's one of the things that this agreement, stipulates. Another thing to point out is that the AFL-CIO has endorsed the deal, which is the largest collection of unions in the country.
I would have to see how much the individuals that already perform this work make.
True.
That's what I would have to see. What's the average pay for individuals who already do that kind of work?
Is this a bump or not?
Yeah. It's like a significant bump.
Yeah. And just to, Trump, of course, he is glad about this agreement. And on Twitter, this is what he put out. He said, America's great USMCA trade bill is looking good. It will be the best and most important trade deal ever made by the USA. Good for everybody, farmers, manufacturers, energy, unions, tremendous support. Importantly, we will finally end our country's worst trade deal, NAFTA. So, Nancy Pelosi, because there is some pushback on this, because again, this is the same day now that the articles of impeachment were drafted and released, that they were announced. So there were some pushback, some criticism on the Democratic Party, specifically Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, for giving President Trump a win on this day, because President Trump has been wanting this for some time. He's been talking about the USMCA for months now. And you've heard Republican members of Congress stating that, hey, we could be doing this, we could be doing that, we could be ratifying the USMCA, but
these do nothing
Democrats holding up the process, this and that. Now, Nancy Pelosi was clear to say that when this was originally presented to the Democratic Party, it was a very flawed idea. It was a very flawed plan. So the Democratic Party has made significant gains. They have made significant gains in this deal. They've improved it over the course of many months. So this is not the same plan that was presented to them, like I said, months ago. So this is a win for workers everywhere in the United States of America.
I don't see a conflict here. I mean, you have multiple jobs you have to do.
Correct.
Or you have multiple tasks you have to involve yourself in. As Speaker of the House,
right,
or as a
congressman,
right. So like, I don't. To me, that's like an invalid question.
Yeah, I don't.
Like,
I don't buy into
it. They still have a job to do. Again, we can agree or disagree on what legislation is sound or not.
Right.
But like, these are two separate things.
Yeah.
Like, country still has to be run.
Right.
Like, you can walk and chew gum at the same time.
I won't say it's a good deal because I haven't looked into enough of it to make that determination yet. But again, if it's a good deal, if the Democratic Party feels like it's a good deal, then they shouldn't hold it up just because they're impeaching the president.
That's kind of what's being suggested here.
Yes, it is. Also, all right, so let's move on to something else. Something else has occurred as well that we wanted to talk about. The Inspector General report, this report, people were anxiously awaiting this report, specifically conservatives.
Heads were supposed to roll.
Yes.
I'm talking about people
be arrested.
I mean, like, it was going to be like one of the biggest perp walks in history.
Yes.
Obama, Hillary, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, everybody in the
Comey,
DNC, McCabe,
yes,
like the deep state,
Strzok,
Page, everybody.
Yes, the deep state is embedded into the FBI, and the Trump campaign was spied on, and all of these inappropriate, illegal activities happened, and this IG report was supposed to put everything on blast. Well, that did not exactly happen. Really, you know what, I'm just going to point to a few words here. So this is from NBC News, okay? And so it states about this IG report. The report found the FBI mishandled parts of its application to monitor a Trump campaign aide as it was probing possible Russian interference in the 2016 race, but that the overall probe was justified. That last conclusion rebuts President Donald Trump's claims that the probe was launched as part of a politically biased plot against him. Also, it goes on to say, at the same time, the IG report found enough errors and, in at least one case, alleged document tampering by a low-level FBI lawyer with the FBI's applications to a national security court to conduct secret surveillance on a Trump aide, that the Inspector General is launching a separate inquiry into how the FBI obtains national security warrants to eavesdrop on American citizens. Now, furthermore, we have a quote from the Inspector General himself, Michael Horowitz, and what he said was, "We did not find documentary or testimonial evidence that political bias or improper motivation influenced officials' decisions to open the investigation." So
there might have been some like some T's not crossed and some I's not dotted, some sloppiness or whatever. Yes. But as far as the whole
background, the motivation behind
the foundation is the foundation is fine.
Yes, it was not due to a political bias. This was not partisanship. This was not inappropriate. It was found that the origin behind the FBI investigating this matter was justified.
And it was based on the words and the statements made by individuals that are associated with the Trump campaign.
That's correct.
They basically brought it on themselves.
They brought it on themselves, yes. Now, you can imagine that Republicans wouldn't be too happy about this. Now, Republicans now have still stated that what was found in this IG report was devastating, damaging, more than what was expected to happen. And so President Trump himself said as much. So we can just show a little clip of him responding to this. And this was in the White House. This was a meeting on education, school choice. But at the beginning of the meeting, President Trump responded to that IG report.
I was just briefed on it, and it's a disgrace what's happened with respect to the things that were done to our country. It should never again happen to another president. It is incredible, far worse than I would have ever thought possible. And it's an embarrassment to our country. It's dishonest. It's everything that a lot of people thought it would be, except far worse. So I'm going to get some very detailed briefings, but they are. It's a very sad day when I see that. Very sad day when a lot of people see that. They had known nothing. It was concocted, and you say what you want. That was a probably something that's never happened in the history of our country.
He said he was briefed on the report?
He said he was briefed. And that is worse than what he expected.
But he said he was briefed. Well, okay. Well, maybe him and his AG should get on the same page, because William Barr has come out and said he disagrees with the findings because they did not validate what he claimed under oath.
Right.
Remember what?
Yeah, we have a quote from AG William Barr, and this is exactly what he said. The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. That's one quote by William Barr. Now, to kind of push back, or actually to disagree with William Barr on that point, is the actual report, which states, we also concluded that under the AG guidelines and the DIOG, the FBI had an authorized purpose when it opened Crossfire Hurricane to obtain information about or protect against a national security threat or federal crime. What Barr is trying to communicate is not the same thing that you can read within the IG report.
Well, hey, man,
those two ideas.
If I was, under oath and I said the FBI spied on the president, I would stick to that story. I wouldn't waver from that story. I think what should happen now is Barr should be impeached or removed from his position because essentially he put something out there without evidence. He didn't even have evidence at the time, and he admitted that he had no evidence, which was irresponsible.
That's true.
So, what did he think was going to happen here?
Now, a key player in this too, or somebody that you would definitely want to hear from, would be the FBI director, Christopher Wray.
Yes, sir.
Republican. Appointed by President Donald Trump. This isn't James Comey. This is Christopher Wray.
No, man. See, I guarantee you what's going to happen is that little, Scooby-Doo.
Right.
When you pull off the mask, when you pull off Christopher Wray's mask,
you're going to see who he really is.
It's going to be James Comey.
Oh,
that's who he really is. Because James Comey already said under oath that they already looked into it and there was no evidence to suggest that there was politically based spying.
But he was lying.
So Trump's own appointed FBI director was lying.
Well, no, Comey was lying. But
who are we talking about here? We're talking about
Comey was lying when he said that nothing happened, right? Are you talking about Comey or are you talking about Wray?
I don't know now because it must be Comey. Christopher Wray must be Comey in disguise. That's the only thing I can conclude here.
Maybe so.
It has to be.
But Wray had some comments about this this IG report, and so he did have he had an interview with ABC News, which we don't have a clip from that, but he did state that he completely accepts the findings of the IG report. He said that he would never use the term deep state to describe the FBI work or that the individuals involved in the FBI. He said that the term is an affront to them, the people that are actually FBI agents.
That sounds like something. Or like you would say if you were a part of the deep state. Will.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If you're not a part of if you are a part of the deep state, you would say there's no deep state. I got you. Also, Director Wray said that he has no evidence that the Trump campaign was targeted unfairly. He is also ordering over 40 corrective actions because, as you said, there was some sloppiness. There was some, and you know what? And this could be a fair point that there could have been some exculpatory evidence that was withheld, and that talks about the FISA court. And like I said, to be fair, there's possibly something there where there might have been some exculpatory evidence that was withheld. And the monitoring of Carter Page,
yeah,
may and look, the dossier, and really this deals with the dossier, but the dossier was not the start of the investigation.
And that was kind of like the foundation of like some of the outrage.
Yes, they
thought
it was
about the surveillance. They thought it was about the dossier,
but it wasn't just the dossier either. That was the reason why they were able to obtain the warrant on Carter Page. But it does the exculpatory evidence that does deal with the dossier. So if that wasn't, if that was withheld, that was definitely inappropriate. And I'm not sure that even given that information that would have affected the outcome and that the judges would not have signed off on extending the warrants on Carter Page.
There was like some I guess, certain information that wasn't submitted in the application.
That's correct.
But was the information even necessary? Because you don't have to have I guess you just have to have like a preponderance of evidence to get your application approved. Like everything about this supposed target or about this supposed subject doesn't have to be included in the application, as far as I know.
Right.
There was something about FBI agent didn't write something that Carter Page said in his application.
Right.
So out of all the information that they gathered about Carter Page, there was a few things that were missing, but it was enough to grant the application valid.
And then there was also, Republicans are making this point that the dossier was being sold as more legitimate than it actually was, and that information was withheld, that it wasn't actually as legitimate as it was, or that it was legitimate when it wasn't. So whatever. Anyway, if that's a relative talking point, fine, we can talk about that, because if we're talking about this monitoring of citizens and this and that, that's definitely a very important topic to discuss. But when we're talking about the origins of the investigation, the FBI, and if this was politically motivated and if it was justified.
That's another question.
No, it wasn't politically motivated, and yes, it was justified. That's what this report detailed. But again, so that's where FBI Director Christopher Wray is coming from, saying that he's already ordering over 40 corrective actions. Now, Trump decides to respond directly to, not directly to, but he says this on Twitter. He makes a tweet, and of course he is responding to FBI Director Christopher Wray's interview with ABC News. So on Twitter, President Trump says, "I don't know what report current director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, was reading, but it sure wasn't the one given to me. With that kind of attitude, he will never be able to fix the FBI, which is badly broken, despite having some of the greatest men and women working there."
What? What kind of double?
Badly broken.
What kind of double speak is that? Man, you appointed the dude.
I don't know.
But basically, what he's saying is, "Yo, man, you're not doing your job," meaning you need to validate all of my conspiracy theories.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to validate all my talking points.
Yeah, and if you don't, he mentioned him as the current FBI director. Why would he throw in the word current? That seemed like a little bit of a threat there.
He wants a bunch of yes men. He wants loyalists in office in any one of these positions.
Also, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, he had some words about this IG report.
You had an inspector general just give you a report yesterday to show that a law enforcement agency spied on a presidential campaign. And when they couldn't get their own facts, they changed it to go to a secret court in FISA to try to spy further.
No.
That's not what the report said.
No. And he's choosing to use the word spy. That doesn't appear in the IG report. Not, you know what? I can't say for certain because it's over 300 pages, I believe. I think it's close to 400 pages. I can't be certain that the word spy does not appear, but you know what I can say? In the context of spying occurring on the Trump campaign, that was not suggested. That was not stated whatsoever. Spying denotes like a crime, something amounting to illegal activity. No. Again, the IG report stated that the foundation of this investigation was proper. It was warranted. It was justified. It was not politically motivated. So that's just Minority Leader McCarthy lying, to put it very simply. He's just lying.
Again, he is there to offer sound bites for the media that caters to Republicans, conservatives, and Donald Trump and his base.
True.
That's what these little kind of media stunts are designed to do.
All right. But yeah, I was really, Man, I was getting ready for all these heads to roll, man. My gosh, man. I mean, I was like, damn, man.
Perp walk
after perp walk after perp walk, man.
You know the irony behind that desire? The irony behind that is, over the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years, there has been perp walks.
There have been perp walks. The most recent perp walk was Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. Yeah.
I think that was,
That was the most recent perp walk. But there have been perp walks happening, just not the way that.
Not the way people envisioned.
Not the way people.
Not
envisioned.
the people envisioned either. You know, interesting.
I mean, you got Manafort.
Yeah.
You got Flynn. You got Gates. You got Cohen. I mean, the list, Stone, the list keeps going, Papadopoulos. The list is long.
It is. But, you know, that can't amount to Hillary Clinton. You see Hillary Clinton being led in some handcuffs. That's what you want to see. But this didn't get the job done.
I don't think there's, me personally, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, if you had something that you could get her on where she broke the law, if you had something to get her on, then I'd be like, cool, like go get her. I don't want her to feel like she's above the law more than anybody else. I mean, Trump definitely seems like he is above the law, but Hillary Clinton, any actions, the Clinton Foundation, this and that. I mean, if you have something legitimate, go get her. I'm not trying to protect her whatsoever. But if it's on some bullshit though, I'm not interested in that. Nah, I'm not interested in that. All right, so let's go on. Let's talk about some politics, all right? Like we haven't been talking about politics already. But specifically, Democratic presidential candidates. We're going to start with one in particular, Pete Buttigieg.
We don't talk about him a lot.
We really don't. We've talked about the booty bug,
the booty bounce.
I keep saying something
booty
else.
bop, the booty bop, booty bounce,
the booty bounce,
booty
something
bump.
like that. We've talked about that, but specifically like focusing on Buttigieg, no, we haven't really done that.
Why is that?
Why?
I guess there were easier targets out there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of low hanging fruit that was easier to go after, and also, Buttigieg is fairly. He's a new face.
He is.
He's a new face. He kind of came out like with this very kind of inquisitive attitude. Smart dude, but it seemed like his attitude was like real inquisitive. He seemed very like he seemed like he was on a mission to soak up all the information, about I guess political issues, social issues that he could, so he can, I guess, arrange his campaign in a way that spoke to people. It seemed like he was like, he was saying a lot of progressive things.
At first,
It didn't seem like the media was making that much like a huge effort, to back him.
But things have since changed.
Things have changed.
And all of that has changed actually, because he is not the progressive that people once thought he was, and the media, which was not pushing him in any real way, is.
I would say he wasn't the progressive people assumed he was based on what he said,
right,
and not based on what he's actually done and his history.
Well,
maybe that was the issue.
Yeah, well, people get their their feelings, and they come away with their opinions based on what candidates say a lot of times, and the way he kind of presented himself was as a progressive, really. And again, we know that not to be accurate anymore. But anyway, so the media, like I said just a few seconds ago, it does seem as though the media is pushing Pete Buttigieg. It does seem as though they are doing that. And I remember in the last debate, you speculated that he may get a tough question, especially dealing with the, I believe you were talking about how he faked
the endorsements
of black people,
from black leaders.
Right. And then the campaign materials.
The campaign material for his Douglas plan or something.
Right. So you thought he
used some sort of stock photo, like from Kenya, And I thought he was going to receive questions from that or for that because that was very controversial. Sorry, that was dirty. That was dishonest and dirty, and he brushed it off when he was questioned about it. Now that was outside the camp. That was outside of the debate.
Right. It was.
So I thought he was going to be forced to address that issue as well. And he ran a series of ads criticizing Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders on Medicare for All and saying it's not democratic.
Right.
It's against freedom and all this stuff. So I thought he was going to face serious questions, not because of that. It's also because he's rising in the polls. He was getting more attention. So I thought it was going to be a Buttigieg-centered debate.
But yeah, he didn't get any of those questions, espally concerning the first issue you were talking about with faking
endorsement with black people. I mean, I understand why he would have to do that because he has no black support. But go ahead.
Right, but the question that was broached on that was pointed to Kamala Harris. You remember? And Kamala Harris had to respond to that, and it never got back to Pete Buttigieg to say, "Well, I'm sorry about this," or what were you thinking? What were you trying to do? It never went there.
Didn't you mention that you thought that Kamala Harris dropped the ball on that, considering how she attacked Joe Biden?
Right, because he was polling better than Kamala Harris at the time, so she did drop the ball because she just really dropped the ball. She just dismissed it and didn't really comment on it. She just said, "Well, he's kind of apologized for that," and blah, and she moved on. So that was a mistake. But anyway, she's out the race. No more talking about it. But anyway, so again, it seems as though the media did not really want to give him a difficult question, a tough question. It seemed as though he was being pushed. Protected media darling, this and that. Well, he was in Iowa recently, and it was a campaign event, and he was being asked some questions. And so we have a video of it shouldn't be a difficult question. Shouldn't be a difficult question.
Especially for him. He's a smart guy.
Oh, smart guy.
He should be able to answer anything.
Not a difficult question.
He speaks 50 languages?
Yes.
Not 50, but he speaks.
This is more like an uncomfortable question. This is more like an uncomfortable question for Pete Buttigieg.
Earlier today, you said you were open to having a conversation about opening your fundraisers, and that's a question that reporters have been asking for months now. So I'm wondering, when do you expect to actually have that conversation and give an answer on that?
Again, I don't have a timeline for you.
As the candidate, can't you just direct your campaign to open those fundraisers?
What's that?
As the candidate, can't you just direct your campaign to open those fundraisers?
Yes.
And why haven't you done so?
What's that?
Why haven't you done so yet?
There are a lot of considerations, and I'm thinking about it.
Ask questions. Can you give us an example of those considerations?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, man.
Thanks. Thank you.
Did you see that little smarmy smirk on his face? Did you see that shit?
Yeah, I did.
He was just being like, you know what? I don't care. I don't really care. It was a very entitled type of answer he gave. I don't owe you any kind of answer. I don't have to explain myself.
Right. And this has been something that people have been talking about for some time now, in which these fundraisers have not been open to media access. So we know that he is trying to court big donors, and it would be interesting what he is saying to these big donors, but he has not allowed any access into it. So, and according to this display, he was like, "Nah, I don't got no information on that. I don't know when we're going to allow it. I don't got to tell you anything. Shut it down. I'm walking off stage." Now, since that made the round, since people were commenting or commenting on that.
Backlash.
Yes. He has changed his stance now.
Oh, okay.
Now he is saying that it will be open to, I guess, members of the media now. So I guess really what he had to wait on was to, tell his big dollar donors, yo, some of that stuff that we gotta cut that out. We gotta cut that out. I can't.
He had to consult them first.
Yeah, I can't be saying the same things no more. You know where I'm at, but I can't be saying that no more. I can't be saying that.
So y'all gotta work with me, okay?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll tell you later. Okay? But I can't make a big spectacle of it. No, I can't do that. But anyway, some other some other potentially damaging video has emerged concerning Pete Buttigieg as well, and this is also in Iowa. So there was somebody, and I guess this was at a campaign event. There was somebody that was asking Pete Buttigieg a question about campaign finance and money in politics, and this is how Pete Buttigieg responded.
Yeah.
I want to ask if there's definitely taking big money out of politics, if he was not taking money out of billionaires, he closed our fundraiser.
Now, it was a little bit hard to hear that, okay? It was a little bit hard to understand what he was saying. There was some captions. If you didn't get it in time, the young man, I believe it was a young man that was asking Pete Buttigieg a question. He said, I wanted to ask you if you think that taking big money out of politics includes not taking money off of billionaires and closed-door fundraisers. To which Pete Buttigieg clearly and quickly stated, no, I don't believe that. Wow. Thanks for your being candid. I appreciate that, Pete Buttigieg. Now we know where you are.
But you know, it's that. I don't know. I would think that would be a weird admission, but I think that admission just gets him out of the conversation. Because if he says no, that prolongs the conversation. That means he would have to explain himself.
Well, see again, you just said how intelligent he was, right? You just said how intelligent he was. That's not a question you just want to bypass. Especially given that you have no aims to change your ways. Now, I know that he has come out and said that the closed door fundraisers are going to be open door fundraisers now. But if this is your position that, hell no, I'm going to take all this money from billionaires. You don't want to say that, because we know that, especially in the Democratic Party, money in politics is a significant issue. You don't want to brush that aside. So maybe you don't say no and walk away. Maybe you say, well, hey, look, these are the points, all right? This is what's wrong with our elections. This is what's wrong with money in politics, this and that. Politicians do that all the time. They escape the actual point of the question all the time. They don't actually answer the question all the time. For him to just say no and walk away, I think that's
maybe just
worse.
saying, I don't know, but maybe again, if he wouldn't have said no, he would have had to stay there. He wanted to be up out of there.
He did.
You see what I'm saying? He didn't want to explain himself.
He really did.
If he would have said yes, then that would have probably led to a secondary question. Like, I think
a better candidate would have done that.
Well, true, but maybe he recognizes that he would be caught in a contradiction.
Dude, I've
You see what I'm saying?
heard a response from Ted Cruz that was better than that. That was in 2016. I heard maybe 2015 when they were debating. But yeah, I heard a response from Ted Cruz that was better than no. But yeah, I appreciate you being candid there, Buttigieg. So let's go to Poland, okay? Now, anybody that's watched the show has heard us say before that Poland is something to pay attention to. You can lean on it to some degree, but you definitely have to take it with a grain of salt, because these are not
comprehensive.
Well, they're not comprehensive. Then you have to go into the details of who's being asked these questions, what the target group is,
basically
how many of them,
the methodology behind how they conduct the poll,
cell phones, landline phones,
so they could manipulate results.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? So we understand that happens.
It's something to focus on, but it's not everything, because really we won't really have anything until a vote is until a ballot is cast. Okay, that's when we'll have something. But again, it's something to pay attention to. So there is some new polling that we wanted to kind of talk about. So in the Morning Consult, there's a new poll for the four early states, which is Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. And in that poll, Biden is up top, and actually he gained ground. He gained a few points. So he's at 28%. Behind him is Bernie Sanders at 21%, Elizabeth Warren 14%. Buttigieg is at 9%, Steyer's at 9%, and Yang is at 4%. Really, I mean, there's a few things to discuss there, but Warren, everybody thought she was the front runner at one point, and this was a few weeks ago, and she is not the front runner. Not even close to it. Not here.
Not only was she the front runner, it seemed like she was gaining some ground.
It seemed as though she was gaining ground on not only Bernie but Biden. In some polls, she was eclipsing Biden, but not here. Buttigieg as well, 9%, not doing too well. He's fallen. He's tied with Tom Steyer at 9%. That's not doing good if you're Buttigieg. Also, another poll, again by Morning Consult. This is a national poll. Biden is at a higher 30% nationally. Bernie is at 22%, so that's a percentage point higher than the 4 early states. Warren at 16%, which is 2 points higher than the 4 early states. Buttigieg at 9%, same. Michael Bloomberg is at 6% nationally.
This fool entered the race at 6%. He entered the race at 6%. I tell you what, I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe that for 1 second.
It's hard to believe that. Bloomberg, nationally now, not in the state of New York. Nationally, he's at 6%. That's hard to believe. And then Yang is at 4% as well. So again, Warren is in 3rd place, Buttigieg, in 4th place. Not doing too well, not according to this poll at least.
I'm thinking they only polled people that have a yacht and a Bentley.
Maybe.
They own a yacht and a Bentley and $1 million house. I'm thinking that's who they polled.
Well, Bernie's at 22% nationally. I mean, you know they ain't for him. You know they ain't for him. But it's still 6% for Bloomberg. That's hard. He has been spending money.
But see, money don't mean anything
Quick.
if you don't have
yeah, I know.
You
have to have
ground
bodies.
support. You have to have bodies. Do I really believe that he's 6%?
Well, look, you know what? I was going to wait to do this, but we can put this up. So this is, and I don't know if you can actually read that, okay? But this is a little bit of information. And, let me make this just maybe a little bit bigger so that people can really see this. So this is this is for a field organizer position on the Mike Bloomberg team. Okay, and it's talking about how you can help. He's building a team of talented, hardworking colleagues. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Talks about your responsibilities will include this and that. Blah 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 blah. Now on the right side of this is really what I wanted to highlight here. $6,000 per month. That is the salary for a field organizer if you work for the Mike Bloomberg team. Now, I think I'm willing to assume that there will be a lot of people who don't really agree with Mike Bloomberg's vision of the country, his vision politically, but will choose to take that $6,000. And in turn, if they're choosing to take that $6,000, they're going to have to be working in earnest for Michael Bloomberg, and they will have to be pushing his message forward. $6,000 is a lot of money.
Mm-hmm, it sure is.
$6,000.
There's a lot of people out here that would go against their principles to do that work, man. There's a lot of people out here that would be willing to do that, to just separate themselves from their principles and the political policies that they stand for, just to get money, because they're fine. It's $6,000 a month.
$6,000 a month.
Who would not want to go for that? As I fill out my application, let's see. What you talking about, boy? Well, I'm feeling like that app, boy. I'm trying to get that six
$6,000
above, dog.
$6,000 a month.
Bernie who? Bernie who? Shit, boy.
And you see, there are so many. This is what's wrong with politics too. Michael Bloomberg is a billionaire million times over, or not million. He's a He's a.
You about to say a bloominaire. You about to say a bloominaire.
I'm creating words. Look, he's a billionaire many times over, okay? And so he has already stated that he's going to be spending so much money on this campaign. I believe I saw a graphic stating that in the first, I think, 2 weeks of his candidacy, he had already spent like $37 million. And I think Tom Steyer has been on the campaign trail for months now. At that point, this was days ago, I think he had spent something like $47 million.
And for them, that's still a drop in the bucket. That's like going to the grocery store.
Yeah, so they got much money to play with. And so, again, they are facilitating things to where people are going to compromise their principles for a paycheck. Given this economy, given where the middle class is and poor people are.
They're taking advantage of desperation. They're true capitalists.
Of course.
So when Michael Bloomberg says that he's going to spend X amount of dollars on his campaign, that's what he's talking about.
Hell yeah. He's going to get people to do his work.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to pay people to sell out.
Hell yeah. And there will be many people that do it. $6,000 a month, they'll say, I'll buy my own principles. Forget that. I need to feed my family. I need to feed myself. I need this job. I need this car. I need this. I need this. So that again, it's still hard to fathom that he's at 6% nationally right now. But if he's doing stuff like that across the country, people will work hard for $6,000 a month.
They'll work hard and ignore their principles.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. And they will really look like they believe in Mike Bloomberg and his vision. They will really look like it. She's not on the Mike Bloomberg team, but Simone Sanders, hey, I don't know what she's getting paid, but you see how hard she's working. I'm sorry.
Man.
That was just... Was that gratuitous? Was that?
I wasn't expecting you to bring up her, but that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
How do you go from Bernie Sanders to Joe Biden? Riding hard for Joe Biden.
Real hard, dog. And not only riding for Joe Biden, but criticizing Bernie Sanders as well.
People got to cash out.
They got to cash out.
People got to cash out, man.
All right, some more polls. A Monmouth University poll. It shows Biden. This is a national poll. Shows Biden at the top spot with 26% support. Bernie Sanders, 21%. And that's within the survey's 5-point margin of error. Warren is at 17% support. And that is a 6-point drop. 6-point drop since the poll in November.
Now,
11 points dropped from September.
Is there some kind of correlation here? Like, what happened in her campaign? Is it a fallacy though? Am I saying, you know what I'm saying?
No, this is Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Whatever her plan is.
Her two legislation plan
didn't help Kamala Harris, and it doesn't seem to be helping Elizabeth Warren. Pete Buttigieg, 4th place again in this poll as well, 8%. So again, these are very similar polls. There's a fairvoteu.gov poll, and this is South Carolina. So this poll is for South Carolina. Biden is at 39%. Second place is Bernie Sanders with 13%. Elizabeth Warren is at 10%. Buttigieg is at 10%. So again, 4th place. Tom Steyer, 7%. Tulsi Gabbard is at 4%. And Andrew Yang is at 3%.
Man, it doesn't seem like Tulsi and Yang are moving.
Nope.
When I say Yang, I can understand why he's not moving, because his campaign seems to have hit a roadblock. But that's, I think it's connected to his position on Medicare for All too, and his kind of loose alliance with Biden.
Exactly.
Biden.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, with Biden.
True. Here's something to know. But well, actually, before I note that, we've talked about South Carolina before and the chances that Bernie Sanders has to win South Carolina. I don't think it's going to happen. I've said it many times before. I don't think it's going to happen. This is an accurate depiction of what I think we're going to see in South Carolina. I think Biden is going to win, assuming that he's still there, and I have no reason to doubt that he'll still be in the race. But it seems as though that type of establishment Democratic candidate, like a Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, seems as though, South Carolina, it seems to, that support is funneled to that type of candidate. And Joe Biden, before this, I don't believe had any type of support like this, especially when you're talking about black people, because in South Carolina, in the Democratic primary, it's mostly black people. All right, this is one of the states. I don't know if it's the only one, but it's one of these states where the Democratic primary, most of the voters are black people. Over half of the voters are black people. And it seems to be that before Joe Biden had this place in the Obama administration, I don't believe you could point to some significant black support. But now that he was a VP under Obama, that black support has been extended to him. So that's just what it is. Now, so when you're talking about specifically black support, Joe Biden is at 55%. Second place, Bernie Sanders with 16%. Okay, so those are the top two.
That makes sense.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Now, this is where it gets a little troubling.
Well, wait.
Not troubling for me.
No, troubling for
a particular
candidate. So is it the same candidate who we have been focused on as far as dropping?
Yes.
We already knew it. But see, this is not surprising. So who is that candidate?
It's Pete Buttigieg.
Because he's polling at he's polling below 0%.
No, he's not that below.
No,
it's almost there. It's almost there. So I just really want to. We need to really communicate this to you, okay? So again, Biden's at 55%, according, black support in South Carolina. Bernie's at 16%, second place. Buttigieg, 1.29% support among black people.
That's not going to get it done.
1.29%. And just to give some context to that, you know who's ahead of him? John Delaney. John Delaney in South Carolina.
Delaney is more likable than Pete Buttigieg.
John Delaney's at 2.5% support among black people in South Carolina.
You know what? If Pete Buttigieg, along with his campaign manager and those on his campaign team and his communications team just shut their mouths, it probably wouldn't be so low. Because they tried to gaslight black people.
They did.
In regard to why he wasn't getting support. First they said, well, it's because he's gay.
Yeah, that was wild. It is very interesting because think about it. Who is Pete Buttigieg most like in this race? Of the other candidates, who was he most like? Like, who would you compare him to? Because I would compare him to Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, yeah. He's just Joe Biden without the stuttering and without the weird stories.
And without Obama.
Yeah, pretty much.
Without Obama. So again, this is it's not a good time to be Pete Buttigieg.
Poops?
Did I say poop?
You said poop.
It's not. I was already going to boop. See, boop. Pete, boop. Pete, boop.
Buttigieg.
See, don't even start something. But anyway. See, stop it. Stop.
Let's be good.
Yeah, let's
be good.
Let's go with this. All right. We got a few more things to go through. Okay. But anyway, it's not a good time for Pete Buttigieg. He's falling. He's falling in the polls. So that brings us to the 7th. Well, no. So the next Democratic presidential debate is going to be on December 19th. And there had already been 6 candidates that had qualified for that debate. And so now there is a 7th candidate. And it is Andrew Yang. Today, on Tuesday, he qualified for the next debate.
All right. Yang gang, stand up.
Yang gang, stand up. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is close. She has already qualified in terms of donors, but she has not qualified in terms of polls. She is at 3 or 4 polls, qualifying polls. She needs one more poll. And she has until Friday, I believe, to qualify for that. But she made some news recently. On Twitter, she announced, for a number of reasons, I have decided not to attend the December 19th debate, regardless of whether or not there are qualifying polls. I instead choose to spend that precious time directly meeting with and hearing from the people of New Hampshire and South Carolina. Excuse me.
Okay. For a number of reasons, I've decided not to attend the NFL draft. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to spend time with, consultants and advisors, figuring out what I need to do with my life. But for now, I'm not going to involve myself in the NFL draft.
You're just not.
I'm not.
You're just not.
I'm not going to do that. It's just, I've decided not to do that. I've also decided not to participate in the Winter Games at the Olympics.
Oh, that was something
that.
you was trying to get into that?
No. I was actually slated to go. I qualified, but I'm deciding not to go. No, I don't know if I was qualified. Maybe I wasn't. I don't even know if I'm being scouted to go to the NBA either. So,
well, for a number of reasons, I am choosing not to accept a position for the New York Knicks.
Oh, GM position.
Yeah.
The GM?
No, player.
Player?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm choosing not to play for the New York Knicks because fuck the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks. So I'm choosing instead to not play professional basketball. I'm just not going to do it. I got other stuff to do, man. So I'm not going to do it.
I know the Knicks are probably going to be disappointed in that.
Yeah, I know, man. But
because they were really wanting you, man.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to mess with the Knicks, man. So I'm just not going to do it.
See what this is? This is sarcasm, right? This is sarcasm to kind of provide kind of a look into how this take sounds.
Yeah,
This take sounds weird because
sounds real
she
weird.
says like she hasn't qualified. So why is she saying I have decided not to attend a debate that she hasn't qualified for?
Now she does say regardless of whether or not there are qualifying polls. So I guess
what she's saying is if she did qualify,
she still ain't going.
She still ain't going.
If she qualifies, if she doesn't qualify, she's taking this stance to not appear to the debate. And one other point about that too, she put quotations around debate as if it's not a debate. Like that's the point. Like that's kind of weird for you to. Everybody knows what quotations mean. Like you're good. Like you're intelligent. It means the opposite.
I now this is where I kind of agree with her. Just on that one point. I understand. Maybe like I guess everything else surrounding the point doesn't make sense. But you know how sometimes people see these debates where not only are they boring, they really don't get us anywhere. You see what I'm saying? They really don't show us anything. They really, the moderators are very disappointing. And like we talked about Pete Buttigieg not being held accountable for what his campaign had done. And so maybe, if you're talking about it in that regard, yeah, like you could put quotes around debate. But again...
But it's everything that we're used to. Like, this is no different. This particular debate that's going to be happening on December 19th is no different than anything that we've seen before. So I haven't seen her say that they aren't really debates before. But now that she's not going to show up for one that she has not qualified for, it's not really a debate.
Like the last time I guess she threatened to, she's boycotting the last one because of the polls?
Yeah.
You think this one is kind of the same way, but she's not saying it. She's not stating it clearly, but it is about the polls?
I would guess so. I mean, I would guess so, but she definitely has she feels as though she does have a gripe concerning the polls, but everybody has to qualify it the same way.
I was about to say, I mean, we can have a disagreement about the polls that are recognized by the DNC, but the polls that they recognize are known ahead of time.
Yeah, they are.
And the same qualification standards apply to everybody. Now, again, we can discuss and, have an issue with the methodology behind some of these polls, because some of them are flawed. Because the results can be influenced by the characteristics of the target group. So we know this. But everybody in this field is playing by the same rules. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is, like, why wait to the last minute to protest?
Why?
Why wait to the last minute?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If she had a legitimate gripe with the process, which she is free to have, she'd protest the entire time. And, not just when the process didn't work out for her. And who does this hurt?
It hurts her.
Yeah, not attending the debate only hurts her.
Because look, man, you only get so many times to appear on national television. And I'm sure, of course, her supporters, people that believe in her, want her to appear on places like CNN. Even though they don't like CNN, even though they don't like MSNBC, they still recognize that for her to get her message out, she's going to have to appear within these networks, right? So they do recognize that. So for Tulsi Gabbard to act like this is not an opportunity that she should take, should she qualify?
Oh, so you think she's like, you know what? You know what it looks like? It looks like somebody, like, when they know they didn't make something, I don't care about that anyway.
Oh, snap. Damn, dog. Why you...
You know
what you brought me back to now?
What?
Damn.
That's what it seems like when somebody, like, misses out on something, they'd be like, man, I ain't care about that anyway.
Nah. It's kind of like that. You brought me back to Trump, man. You remember when he disinvited the Golden State Warriors?
When they didn't want to come?
When they didn't want to come.
They didn't want to come.
Yeah. Anyway, what's also weird about that, too, is that she says she's going to choose to spend her time in New Hampshire and South Carolina during that time.
New Hampshire and South Carolina. New Hampshire, South Carolina.
Now, we're in South Carolina.
Okay.
We're in South Carolina. To get to New Hampshire from here would take a minute.
Just a quick minute. Just a quick minute.
It'd take a minute. It'd take a minute. Even by plane, it would take a minute. Even by plane, it would take a minute. It's a little weird. It's a little weird to say that.
Again, the whole thing is weird. Again, I was trying to be like the devil's advocate in regard to her putting debate in quotes, because how everybody sees the debates. But do you know, like, maybe what can be done to try to mitigate this kind of, I don't know, the boringness of the debates, like the whole, like, the theater of the debates, having someone in there that's can throw a wrench in there.
True.
You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of people like to watch certain people in a debate because they will throw a wrench in this whole theater, the theater of it all. And so,
but the wrench can't be acting like the moderator, though. That can't be the wrench, because...
And that's what a lot of people see her as, you know what I'm saying, to break things up a bit. And that's what they like about her. So even if, you agree that, the debates aren't really debates, they don't get us anywhere, somebody needs to be in there to break that up. And that's why people watch the debates in the first place, with Yang and Tulsi being in there. And of course Bernie, but he's a top tier candidate, so I'm not counting him. But those lower tier candidates being in there provided some sort of, like, incentive to watch it, or attracted people to the debate, because they know those people are going to try to throw a wrench in it. So I don't know. I don't see how people can make an excuse.
Look, these candidates that we have for president right now, I don't believe they're the best candidates nationally for president of the United States. They're the most notable. They're the ones with maybe some of the most clout nationally, celebrity figures, Congress members. But are they the best candidates
ever
to
hold office?
Yeah.
And you know that goes for Bernie too.
Exactly.
That goes for Bernie too.
Yes. So the only reason I make that point is that the best candidates that are out there, they're probably not going to qualify for these debates because of the polling, because of the threshold for donors. They're probably not going to qualify. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if it's unfair for Tulsi Gabbard, it's unfair for everybody else too. It's just you have to make do with the rules.
Then there was people polling lower than she was, like Cory Booker.
Much lower. Cory Booker is at 0 of 4 qualifying polls right now. 0. He's not going to make it. Castro, not going to make it.
Kamala just dropped out.
Aurora
dropped out.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are the bigger names.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so I don't know. It just seems like she's being a bit of a brat here.
Mm-hmm. All right, one more, and then we're gonna
open the lines up.
Yeah. So recently, Nikki Haley, who is the former governor of South Carolina and a former member of the Trump administration as the former ambassador to the UN, she appeared on the Blaze Network with Glenn Beck, and the conversation was
interesting.
Yeah, the conversation was interesting. It got into, I guess, her time in South Carolina, and specifically about Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof was the mass murderer, the
shot up the church
in Charleston. Yeah, killed 9 people, of course, churchgoers, black churchgoers, because of his very racist beliefs, his worldview, white nationalism, Nazism, whatever you want to call it. He was a racist guy. Is a racist guy. So the conversation went there and went to the Confederate flag as well. And Nikki Haley shared a very distorted view about what that Confederate flag is.
South Carolina fell to her knees when this happened. This is one of the oldest African American churches. These 12 people were amazing people. They loved their church, they loved their family, they loved their community. And here is this guy that comes out with his manifesto holding the Confederate flag and had just hijacked everything that people thought of. And we don't have hateful people in South Carolina. There's always the small minority that's always going to be there. But, people saw it as service and sacrifice and heritage. But once he did that, there was no way to overcome it.
Oh, so it was Dylan Roof who hijacked it.
She said the word hijack. He hijacked the belief about the Confederate flag. When he murdered those 9 people in Charleston, he hijacked what people believed about the Confederate flag.
Did he hijack it, or did he follow the beliefs? Or did he internalize beliefs? Right? They're making it sound like he was just lone wolf who decided to just randomly use this symbol as some sort of articulation of his ideology and motivation behind his attitude and what he did. Like, he just randomly chose this out of nowhere. It just happened to be this flag.
It's not like it's a picture of a rainbow. And like, I don't believe that a picture of a rainbow has any connections to white nationalism or racism or anything like that. I don't believe. I could be wrong, but I don't believe so. But it's not like he chose some just random image like that and said, well, oh, you know what? I'm gonna make this my belief.
Yeah, groups choose innocuous symbols all the time, but they do that in order to conceal themselves.
Right.
But
that wasn't
that's not what the Confederate flag is.
Right.
And quite frankly, it's this kind of apathy and this denial about the Confederacy and what it represented and what it stood for is what contributes to people like Dylan Roof existing in the first place. This denial. I know what it was in service of, because she said it was service and sacrifice. It was in service of slavery. It was in service of white supremacy. The Confederate flag. Also, she said it represented sacrifice. Yeah, there's people who sacrifice themselves for a lot of things.
Yeah.
All of which are not good. You can sacrifice yourself for something abhorrent and hateful and bad. So because it's a sacrifice doesn't make it good.
Yeah, that's happened over the course of history many, many times, to sacrifice for really bad intentions. Like you said, the Confederacy, the Confederation of, or the United, what was it called? The Confederate States of America? Yes. Yeah. That always stood for the brutal enslavement of black people, always. And by extension, the Confederate flag stands for the same exact thing. Now, I don't want to go to revisionist history and say that the Confederate flag at the time was the flag of the Confederacy. No, it wasn't. It was one of the flags. I believe it was one flag in one region, or one region of the Confederacy.
It actually started out as a battle flag.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It was one of the flags within the Confederacy. It didn't stand for the whole Confederacy, but yeah, it was one of them. Now, when it came to, the civil rights movement, even a little bit before, it came to be that meaning that this was for the Confederacy. That's what we know of it now. It's the Confederate flag. That's what it's called. So it does stand for the Confederacy now. So to take away that meaning of what the Confederate States of America stood for, no, you can't do that. That is revisionist history. For Nikki Haley to then say that Dylann Roof stripped away what people really felt about the Confederate flag and make it mean something else, because before that it stood for service, sacrifice, and heritage. Now,
why didn't Dylann Roof kind of internalize all those things?
Right.
Just in general.
That's one question. Now, I remember, because this happened in 2015. This happened in 2015 when Dylann Roof entered that church and murdered 9 people. Now, I remember 15 years prior to that, in the year 2000, where I, along with many other people, went to the State House in Columbia, South Carolina, to protest the Confederate flag being atop the State House, the Capitol building. Protested. Now, after that, there was some agreement struck in the in the state Congress, to which the Confederate flag was going to be removed from the top of the State House, and it was going to be put on the grounds now, which did not alleviate anybody's concern. It just made it more in our faces. But this had been a battle for many, many, many years. The opinion about the Confederate flag had been the same. To say that it was about heritage, what heritage? Because heritage doesn't mean that it's positive heritage.
Like
heritage, like you say, sacrifice can be definitely negative. Heritage, the heritage is that the Confederate flag, what we know as the Confederate flag today, stood for a collection of states and people that supported the enslavement, the brutal enslavement of black people. And the indefinite brutal enslavement of black people. The killing of black people. The hanging of black people. The raping of black people. The separation of families of black people. The selling of black people. The forced work of black people. All of this. This is what the Confederate States of America stood for, and by extension, of course, what the Confederate flag stands for. So to say that it stands for heritage, sacrifice, service, what do these things mean, though?
What do they mean?
Service of what? Sacrifice for what? Heritage, what heritage? All of these things are wicked. And you would think she knows that.
And what's sad about it is, what was the breaking point? What was the breaking point? Not that Abraham Lincoln wanted the Confederate States of America, representing the South, to stop slavery. They just wanted the South to stop, advocating for the spread of it.
Right.
That's it.
That's it.
So the South wanted to expand slavery. That's really what the contention was. Also, individuals like Robert E. Lee, you talked about him extensively at one point. I'm not going to go into the history, but he would kidnap freed slaves and bring them back so that they could remain in slavery. So it was more about Southern aggression, actually.
Right.
Not Northern aggression, because the North was honestly pretty apathetic to it.
Right.
They just didn't want it to spread.
Didn't want it to spread.
Confederate wanted to spread slavery.
Didn't want to stop the practice in the South. No, there was no effort to stop them from doing it. And
they could have done it.
Lincoln's inaugural address, he said, "Hey South, do what you do. We're not trying to come for you.
Just stay over there.
Just stay where you
over
are.
there.
We ain't trying to end things for you. We ain't trying to, throw a monkey in. A monkey wrench in there. We're not trying to end nothing for you. Okay? Be cool. Be cool. I'm cool. Be cool.
Just be cool. Just don't come over here with that." But they just couldn't stay to themselves. That's why it's so just ironic for people who kind of hoist the Confederate flag up as some sort of representation of honor and liberty and heritage, and use terms like War of Northern Aggression when they were the actual aggressors.
And who shot the first shot?
Who shot
the first?
Who fired the first shot?
Yeah, exactly. And again, Nikki Haley was the governor of the state at that time in 2015. And
your state.
Now I remember in 2015 because I was there again in 2000. I was there at the State House when it was there was a big protest of the state of the Confederate flag being on top of the State House. And in 2015, I was there when it was on a big pole, a very tall pole on the State House grounds. And so I was there when it was removed. And I talked about that before, I believe. Yeah. But so that was 15 years later. Now, who was a proponent of that move was Nikki Haley. Now, she caught a lot of flack from, of course, conservatives, Republicans in the state, because, of course, they didn't want to see that happen. Oh, it was a big mess. No, you can't. That's history. No, you got to put it up there. But, of course, that history doesn't represent us all. That belongs in a museum. Of course, that belongs in. I have no problem with it being in a museum. There's a lot of things that I find personally offensive in a museum, but I believe that they should be there because they are artifacts of history or just representations of history. Yeah, they should be there.
Yeah, whatever we use for, or whatever kind of monuments and statues and symbols we use to, I guess, identify us as a group of people, or we use currently, should reflect that. Right. Should reflect
historical items that don't represent us, especially when you're talking about a flag that definitely, and it was a contradiction to. I don't want to go very far into this, but the notion that the Confederate flag can fly on top or near the U.S. flag when those two things oppose each other, because those two things fought each other, it's ridiculous. But again, Nikki Haley was supportive of this effort to remove the Confederate flag from the State House grounds, and from conservatives, she got a lot of flack, but from other people, it was like, yeah, she's doing the right thing. There you go, stand up. That's what, okay, give her a lot of credit. Now, was it that she felt this way the whole time, or is she being disingenuous right now? It's one of two ways, because there's no way anybody reasonable could think that most people, because the way she's kind of stating it is that most people felt that the Confederate flag was about service, sacrifice, and heritage.
And that's the problem. That is the problem. And I think this is one of those cases where when you talk about ideologies that contain, hateful beliefs, right? That contain hate within it. They will rely upon these generic terms in support of it. I think that's what we have here. You just have these service, sacrifice,
just words.
Heritage, honor. It's like those words act as some sort of cover.
Right. Again, and it's just, look, go back and read the secession papers that were filed by the states that seceded from the Union. South Carolina was the first state that seceded from the Union. Because that's history. You can read that online easily. Read those articles of secession for every state that left the Union. You will find their words littered with one word: slavery. It was the reason why they left. They wanted to protect the institution of slavery. That's why they left. People will say differently, but that is not true whatsoever. They say, well, states' rights. What state right were you trying to protect?
See, that's kind of that's what tells me it's purposeful. That's what tells me that, the language that they come up with to kind of gloss over certain ideologies. That's done on purpose. Because once you start digging deep into like what they mean by that,
exactly. Like you said, they're just words. They're just using words, and they act like there's no meaning behind them. No,
they know.
You can
they
dig.
Know. They know.
If you just dig a little bit of that ground up.
It's like it's what people do when they don't want to like dig out, toxic beliefs and toxic ideas.
They just want to feel good. They just want to feel good, man. They don't want to deal with the truth. Again, who was it that talked about the wicked origins and was pushing back on that? I can't remember who said that. But they was it was a Congress member, I believe, talking about, you're saying that we have wicked origins. This nation was built on wicked origins.
Yeah, man. I remember because
we played. McConnell?
No, it wasn't McConnell. It might have been McConnell.
Or it might have been. You know what? I'm thinking it was the senator from Louisiana, Kennedy.
I was thinking Kennedy too, but nah, it may have been. It really doesn't.
Well, yeah, it doesn't.
It was one of them. I remember we played the clip.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, but yeah, it's people like that they don't want to realize that yes, the birth of this nation was very, very corrupt and wicked and evil. Oh yeah, definitely. Nikki Haley, man. Nikki Haley.
And you got Bakari Sellers.
You got Bakari Sellers
out here.
Acting like
he playing white knight because he quote tweeted her and said something like, I don't even remember what he said. He was saying something like, "Oh, she didn't mean that. I know her. She doesn't mean this. She meant something else. Maybe she didn't mean what she said or some shit." I'm like, why are you caping right now,
true
dude?
No. Her words stand. She knew where she was. One, she was on the Blaze Network, right? Oh, she knew where she was, and she knew what the hell she was saying. She knows. She wasn't the governor back in 2000, but for her to have all of this history, she knows what the people in South Carolina are about, right? Oh, you know what happened in 2000. You know there was a massive protest in 2000.
So was that
to get that Confederate flag off the State House? Oh, she knows that.
So
she knows the whole reason why it was on the
poll.
I
was about to say. So if she knows the whole reason why it was on the poll and why it was hoisted up there in the first place, and she also is aware that people had a problem with it being up there, how can she act as if like what the flag represented at the time did not reflect racism and white supremacy and control?
This wasn't something that she just did. Like, you know what? I think we should remove it. Yep, because of Dylan Roof, I think we should. Like, there was no effort by other people
before that point. Before that point.
And then at that point, people weren't saying, "See, no, we got to get rid of this. No, this can't be at the State House grounds." It was just that she came away with that. You know what? Dylan Roof changed the meaning. So you know what? I know what to do. Let's remove it.
Oh, so she's trying to put all of the negativity that surrounds that flag, she was trying to put that all on Dylan Roof.
Everything.
She was trying to create a scapegoat out of Dylan Roof to absolve certain attitudes and beliefs that a lot of people have. Like, that's what she was trying to do. And that's some snaky ass shit. It's like, oh, it's all Dylan Roof's fault. Again, like, her position actually makes like Dylan Roof's appear. Like, cause she's in denial. So who's going to be the next scapegoat?
The slavery, the racism, the white supremacy, all of that is not the Confederate flag. It's Dylan Roof.
It's Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof.
He didn't pick a symbol that clearly meant the same thing. Oh, no. He got it wrong. That's what Nikki Haley is saying. He got it wrong. He should have picked another symbol, not the precious Confederate flag. All right, we've come to a stop here. We're going to open this up for calls. We want to hear from you. If you want to join the conversation, please call 669-800. Nope, see, I tried to do it.
Oh, you tried to freestyle.
I tried. 669-900-6833. Yep, I tried to freestyle again. Never sure of that, man. I can't get it, man. I just can't. Especially after, 5 days? Nah.
You know, that 5 days is long as hell.
Yeah, dog.
Like, I be coming on Tuesday shows, like, just almost groggy. Like, I gotta, like before I, like, start the show, I gotta listen to something, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of hard, you know, hype me up a bit.
There's a lot of stuff that we, you know, of course, that we didn't talk about. I don't know if anybody saw that movie scene in Florida.
Oh, damn. Oh, my damn.
The action sequence that was obviously part of a movie production.
I think that was the heist. The second, the two, or the town part 2.
Yeah. Oh, the town.
The town. I think that's what we were watching.
No
Because that was not real.
Oh, no.
I don't believe that was real.
Couldn't have been real. You had police officers shooting a UPS truck, a hijacked UPS truck, on a highway of some sorts, around other cars driven by innocent, regular people.
During
rush hour.
Was it Miami? Somewhere near Miami? Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it could have been, but I don't know. I just know Florida. But
or maybe in Fallujah. I think it was Fallujah. I think that's what it looked like. That was in Fallujah, bro.
Yeah, but obviously this, some criminals had. Was it a bank robbery? It was
jewelry.
Classic
Classic heist.
Right. Yeah,
classic heist.
Classic heist.
Jewelry.
Burglarized jewelry store. Then hijacked a UPS truck.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to drive your own car, so why not hijack a UPS truck? They probably coordinated that because it wasn't like, I doubt it was like, oh, a random UPS truck. Yeah. They knew that UPS truck was going to be there, so I was like, let's hijack it.
They're not around to tell us. I mean, they're dead.
Not only are they not around to tell us, UPS driver is not around to tell us either because the police straight murdered the hostage. Okay, I won't say murdered, but they accidentally shot the hostage. Also,
now, I don't know. That hasn't been confirmed as of yet that he was shot
by the police
officer, bullets. But it would seem as though that's probably the most probable outcome. I don't think the people that were shooting or trying to shoot at the police officers would have been too concerned with their hostage.
Bystanders, the hostage or bystanders. And again, like if you are trying to get away from the cops and you have guns and you kind of have enough balls to shoot at the cops, you probably don't care about bystanders. And quite frankly, the cops should understand that too. Like, again, like I ain't a cop. You know, I wouldn't want to be in a situation like that. But see, I'm not trained to be in a situation like that. And that's not my job. It's their job. And what they did was like, what? Like, why are you using civilian vehicles with people in them as cover? Like, I don't, here's the thing. Like, people say, well, the suspect shot first. I'm like, yeah.
You don't shoot back because
you don't
you're just
shoot back. Like,
man.
Exactly. You know there's a hostage involved. You know there's bystanders
That's
around.
Escalation,
You don't infuse the situation.
Because you're putting everybody in jeopardy at that point.
Yeah,
if you're not shooting back, are they going to continue
shooting?
No,
they're not. So what you do is you retreat. Because guess what? It's rush hour traffic. One. Pretty sure UPS vehicles aren't common. It's not a common vehicle. So it's easy to spot. And also, UPS service trucks have these things on them. I think they're called trackers.
Yeah, I think they're called trackers. Yeah.
So
they're used for
tracking.
Yeah, tracking. Yeah.
Like, I don't even think like a producer of a movie would draw a scene up like this. Like, and if they did, it was designed to make the cops look inept.
Yes, it was designed to be reckless as hell.
Yeah, reckless, purposefully. And I was just like, this is not some damn cops and robbers shit. Like, I think, like, the pursuit is not the problem. It's like,
yeah, because nobody said you can't pursue.
Yeah, but I'm like, you're using
civilian.
You're hiding behind civilian vehicles in a shootout. That obviously puts people in danger. I don't have to be a cop to know that shit. Like, come on, man.
And it is all. I mean, it is. I mean, it's more than unfortunate, man. It's a damn tragedy that this UPS driver, not only was he, damn kidnapped, held as a hostage. But my gosh,
I think
man.
one bystander was killed, but a lot of others were wounded too.
I mean, look, we don't know what the outcome would have been if the events didn't unfold the way they did. We just don't know. But see, that's the problem. We don't know. And see, what we do know is that the events unfolded the way they did, in part because the officers were so reckless. So again, we can't say that UPS driver would have came away from the situation alive. We can't say that. But now that we see the reckless actions of these officers, his death is on them. No doubt his death is on them.
Yeah, man, that whole situation is crazy. I actually didn't like UPS's initial statement, which they ended up taking down. Now, I wonder why. I want to read y'all that statement. Now, there was some little bits of good things in there, but it's something in there that they kind of just shoved in there that I was like, wait a second. Like, why'd they do that? This was the original statement that they actually ended up taking down. It says, "We are deeply saddened to learn a UPS service provider was a victim of the senseless act of violence. We extend our condolences to the family and friends of our employee and the other innocent victims involved in the incident. We appreciate law enforcement service and will cooperate with the authorities as they continue the investigation." And I was just like, that started out great.
Yeah.
But then
took a turn.
It took a turn. Like, why is a multi-billion-dollar company kind of preempting a public statement?
Right.
You know, making sure people don't blame the police. We want to congratulate the police. We want to congratulate the police. It was like, why is that necessary?
If you are congratulating the police, given this situation, then there is no situation where you're going to hold officers accountable for their actions. There is no situation, because it's not that you have to go through police officer training, law enforcement training to understand what not to do. Like, there's some situations that we're not privy to.
Hell no.
There's some, procedures and things that, of course, we have not experienced. Rules of engagement, things like that. I'm sure there's some things that we don't know. But we do know that you don't endanger other innocent people. We know that even in a police chase, if somebody is leading you on a chase and the chase is going through, highly trafficked areas, then you're supposed to lay off, because that's making the situation even more dangerous, and somebody that's innocent is likely to get hurt. So given this situation where police officers are shooting at a truck and they're taking fire from these criminals and they're hiding behind moving cars, regular cars now, just innocent people just trying to get home or wherever they're going, they're hiding by. Now, where is the gunfire going to be aimed? Where's the... I can't even believe this is real.
It's going to be aimed at the cars they're hiding behind.
I can't even believe this is... I can't even believe that... man. Anyway. All right. We got our first caller. That shit is mad upsetting.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, Kilo 19 in the chat. Exactly. We didn't even mention that. They had a damn helicopter.
Yeah, had a helicopter.
Follow with the damn helicopter.
Exactly. And I can't believe it played out like that. I can't believe it. All right. We have a caller, 312 area code. Let's make sure. All right. Let's welcome the caller onto the show. You're on the air live with LTMB.
Hey, I didn't think I was first. Did somebody chicken out?
Nope.
Okay, well, this is Lynn in Chicago.
What's going on,
Hey,
Lynn?
how's it going?
What up,
How's it going,
Lynn?
fellas?
It's going
Good
great.
show tonight.
Thank you.
Tight show. I wanted to talk about something, but you guys are trying to get me off track with this whole thing. You got to remember that as we lose our democracy, your life has no value. So you can't expect to be treated like you have rights and stuff as you move away from democracy.
And police's primary, like their primary purpose is to protect property. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's
And so as we shift on, don't expect anything better than that. But what I wanted to talk to you about is probably not any more uplifting than your last segment, but the consequences of long-term propaganda. So I wanted to find out from you guys, because when you use the word economy, what do you think people are thinking about?
themselves.
I mean,
themselves.
I mean,
most
well,
people.
so like if they say the economy is good or the economy is bad, or or they want some change in it. What are they thinking it is?
Well, yeah, well, like you said, I think it is definitely related to them personally. I think that's what you meant. Like the economy in terms of like what I can afford, what I can pay for. Can I afford this roof over my head? Can I afford to go to the movie theater, this and that? And not just me too, but how others that I know, like how are they doing? You know,
yeah, jobs. Like what kind of jobs are available and how much do they pay?
Yeah.
Like so it's very
right.
You know, go ahead.
Right. Well, see, that's my problem here. It's because there's been a couple of decades of constant propaganda about this word economy, and people hear it and they think it's something other than it is. So when I was a kid, we didn't use the word economy for everything, but they use the word economy for every single thing that's going on in the world. But the economy was something specific, and the economy is something that can only be measured by the GDP. So when you talk about the economy and you're referring to like it's the most important thing, it's something that can only be measured by, what does the GDP stand for, folks?
Gross domestic product, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's a commodification. So basically the economy is good as long as the total sum of goods is a bigger sum than it was last quarter. So the GDP has never had anything to do with us. But what has happened is in the last 2 decades, because this is not the way it used to be, because people used to talk about, like we didn't refer to it as an economic crash or an economic crisis. So they talked about in schools stock market crashes and bank failures, because those are political problems and you can have political solutions to them, like Glass-Steagall. Right? Or you could have FDIC to protect people who have money in banks. And you can regulate banks. Those are political policies. But there are no political policies that can fix the economy. You've just switched from talking about government and political policies and things that can make our life better to thinking about extracting wealth from our society as fast as you can for the investor class. But people don't know it because they've internalized the views of the oppressor. You ever heard anybody talk about internalizing the views of the oppressor? I know you have. Because I've heard you use this language.
Of course. Oh, you know we have.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think a lot of people have heard about, internalizing the views of the oppressor or dominant ideology. And you have to be careful because when propaganda is promulgated, we all have a tendency to try to wrap that into our own belief system. And this word economy is one of those things. Because now, nearly everybody, it only took 20 years, nearly everybody has internalized the views, ideals, beliefs, attitudes, whatever you want to call it, the interests, ethics, morals, mores of the ruling class, the oppressor, the investor class, the establishment, the man, that's what they had in the 70s, the man, or the colonizer. And we're in a neo-colonial age, but nobody's talking about that fact. We're being colonized here, just as people were colonized on this continent when the investor class sent people over here to extract wealth. They didn't care what they were extracting. They sent them over there, and they would go, well, they got lots of people here who can work. They seem to be growing all this weird yellow stuff in the ground called corn, maize, and we can grow sugar here. They can grow cotton. We're going to extract these goods and services, the total number of goods and services, extract them for our own wealth. So what has happened is everybody is totally invested in how much your king and queens can extract from this country. Nobody thinks about our society, about investment in us. It's all about what we can extract. And they've forgotten the very fundamentals of what makes a society, that these little efforts are supposed to be restrained. You're not supposed to be sacrificing. The economy doesn't relate to you. It never has. And when our stock market crashes, and people refer to it as an economic crash, do you know what the recovery of it is? Because we recovered 10 years ago. Everybody's waiting to recover. Do you know when the recovery will happen? It will happen when the GDP starts to rise again. And the GDP rises, get this, with payday loans, because payday loans are part of our GDP now. Payday loans, prisons are services. Financial transactions are now, like if you get an overdraft, that's now called a service. It didn't used to be. But that's one of the services that total into your goods and service. You get a second mortgage, a third mortgage, so you can buy food, keep your kids indoors for a short period of time. The market has recovered. The GDP will start to rise, but you are worse off. The GDP is twice right now what it was the day I was born. It is probably more than twice as high. You can go and look at it. It looks like a hockey stick. It is twice as high as it was when your parents were born, okay? When I was born, my grandfather was like 5 years from retirement after 30 years. After he died, because he retired young, my grandmother lived another 20 years on his pension, right? GDP half the size. He had 7 kids. Everybody who went to college, who wanted to go to college, he sent them to college. House paid off, several boats, lived a good, comfortable life. Only one income in the family with 7 kids, lived well and comfortable. That was what we had before we had this hockey stick GDP. We have the largest economy in the world now. We had the largest economy in the world when I was born. Except back then, we didn't have to save up for our retirement because you could work in a place for 30 years and get a pension. None of us get a pension. None of us will ever know that level of security or comfort. But everybody's focused on the economy, which can only be measured. Economists created one measurement for the economy. So you might as well call the GDP the economy because it doesn't refer to anything else that has to do with us. And all I keep thinking about is Malcolm X. Everybody who's bought into this lie. Malcolm X said, do you remember this? Malcolm X said, you've been had, you've been took, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, because this is what he does. He's got people believing the man internalized the values of their ruler, of their oppressor, of their colonizer, of the man, that we all have to work to get the GDP higher. Every time you complain about the economy, they know they have you, because the only way to improve the economy is with the GDP. People don't understand what the problem is. You got to stop worrying about the stupid economy. The economy is not a system of government. Economists, when you get a chance, and please do this for me, Google the definition, the Webster's definition of economics. Economics is a philosophical study of goods and services. It is not even what people think it is. And political science is the empirical study of governments and political policies. What's the difference between empirical and philosophical? The whole world is the difference between those two things.
Right.
Economics is hypothetical, theoretical, philosophical, ephemeral. It is nothing. It is not even real. They have never proven anything, and they've got everybody thinking that if we just get the GDP higher, it is as high as it's ever been. We have the highest GDP in the world. We have the lowest probably quality of life than any Western country. You compare us to name a Western country that they're all better off than we are.
Well, Jen,
our GDP drowns them.
Well, Lynn,
yeah, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying about people, I guess, taking the language of their oppressors. But
right.
In the world that we live in right now, especially, economy does mean one thing.
See, here's the thing. You think the economy is something that it is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I understand what you mean. The confusion is about what people assume that the economy is. But when you're talking about programs such as, things that we want to see implemented, if you're talking about,
Right, you're talking about economic policies.
Right.
You're talking about economic policies. Economic policies are not studied by economists. So there's a sleight of hand going on that every time you start talking about something political, I'm gonna want to call back and talk to you about governments, but every time you want to talk about something political, they shift the conversation to economics. So economic policies are studied by political scientists. They are studied empirically. They're quantified. We know in advance what a policy will do, and everybody was supposed to have been taught as a child. Because by the time you're 18, you're supposed to be able to understand how policies work. You're supposed to be able to look at a policy and discern whether it's left or right. Left policies build and stabilize democracies, while right policies destroy democracies and build authoritarian governments. And you're supposed to know the difference between, you have to have an educated populace, so you can recognize a policy that provides an equal education for everyone, as leftists, for example. And you can see when they start prioritizing the people who have more to have better educations than everybody else, that's a right policy, or making it difficult for people to have. So anyway, those are political policies. Political policies exist for political result. Economic theories are not related. Okay, so not to get off track, but so we figured out how governments worked 500 years ago. The field of economics has only been around for a century. And what young people don't know is that social sciences sometimes fail. There was a social science called phrenology. It failed, but it was people believed in that thing worldwide. It was bigger than psychology, but psychology replaced it because psychology is empirical. It has data backing it up. That was more about, well, we're going to judge the bumps on your head, and where your bumps are determines your personality. People believe that for real. And we found out, you know what, that's not true. Economics has been around for 1 century, and it has proven to be nothing more than propaganda. They used it, they used it a couple of times to try to replace one system in an authoritarian government with another system. They thought they could do it. You can't, because there's no economic system. People believe in a fallacy. There are no economic systems. People believe in these things like religions. You believe in it without any facts. Nothing is proven. Somebody told you that there's a theory about it, and you believe, but none of the theories actually create the conditions that you think you're going to get if you implement them. So they tried to, because democracies, by the way, don't fit any of the paradigms for these theories from economics. But if you have faith in them and you try to chase them, you will destroy democracy because they're incompatible with democracy. Every time you try to implement an economic theory in a country, you end up with an authoritarian government. They have used it successfully to brainwash people here into destroying their own democracy as they chase capitalism. If you try to replace it with one of the other economic theories, because this is how they get you, no matter which one you choose, you're going to end up with an authoritarian government. Because there's no way to implement. These are not people who study governments. When I was a child, when they taught me what economics was, because they didn't teach it the same way they do now, because back then they used to make us memorize the definition of every field of study. So like you learn, chemistry is the study of this, or psychology is the study of that. So they literally said that economics is the study of goods and services in a vacuum. And I knew what a vacuum meant. It meant outside of the forces of the world, outside of the needs of people, outside of the demands of stability of governments. So these are people who want to theorize, like they're counting the number of angels that sit on the head of a pin. They want to sit around and imagine an imaginary pool of money that gets bigger and smaller without any concern for what it does to human beings, or whether it means having self-governance or being beneath a brutal dictator. You're saying, well, what about us? And we need to have things that help us. I'm saying you're going to have to learn about politics and government, because economic policies are the things that impact you. The single greatest determinant for the quality of life for people in the country is the kind of government that exists in that country. And if you want to have a decent life, you're going to have to fight to have a democracy, because your brutal dictator doesn't care about you.
Well, see, he
cares about you as much as Bezos.
Right. That I agree with, because, look, economic policies, it doesn't matter. Well, not policies, but the theories, the actual system of whatever the economy is. There's no system. There's
no system.
But there can be, whatever is implemented can be corrupted. Like whatever we have right now, it's assumed that it's capitalism. It's assumed that it's capitalism. We don't have. But I'm just talking about those are the words. That's the word choice that is given.
Right.
That's the word choice that
this is what they've been brainwashing you with for 20 years. So what I'm saying is that they have been brainwashing people.
Hold on.
Okay.
I understand that.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that most people, when they're talking about the system that we have, when they're talking about the system of goods and services and how these things are here in our country, jobs, capital, money, income, all of this. This is what they consider the economy to be. And they want economic policies to make their situation even better, right?
Right.
Now, I agree that it doesn't matter what all of this stuff is. It doesn't matter what you call it or anything like that, because anything can be corrupted. So I don't think any of this matters. I do believe that is the government, because we need people
let me give you another way to look at it, Will. Okay.
Hold on. Let me just finish my thought.
Okay.
But I think we need people that are in place in the United States of America, we have representatives. We have a representative democracy. So we have people that are in Congress that have to make these decisions for us. We put them there, but they have to make these decisions for us. If we don't have the right people there that are doing or that are actually interested in the benefit of people, then I don't think anything else matters.
Well, I understand your point, but if the people you're electing are trying to fix our economic system, they're not working on your democracy.
No, I'm not saying that they're promoting the economic system. I'm talking about policies.
I know, but what is happening is people are trying to elect people for their economy. The analogy I was thinking of when you were saying that is that people have confused the byproduct with the ingredients. So you live in the South, so you know what pot liquor is, right?
Yeah, that's
You know
like
what
the
pot liquor
runoff.
is?
That's like the runoff.
What about
from
you,
whatever
Mike?
you're cooking.
Yeah, I knew you would know what it was, Mike. Yeah. So pot liquor, for people who live in the South, they know what it is. People in the North have no idea. But it can be the best part of what you eat. It's when you're cooking something for a long period of time, maybe some meat, some vegetables, some onions, just simmering forever and ever until there's this delicious juice. And then that juice is the pot liquor. And you might want to sop it up with some biscuits, sop it up with some bread, but you definitely have to sop it up with something because it's better than even whatever it is in the pot. So what has happened here is that economists have looked at our country and all they see is the pot liquor. And what they want to do is to take all of that, those onions that got in the way, get that little stew meat out of the way, going to get those vegetables out of the way so we can get all of this pot liquor. And then we can just get more pot liquor if we just get rid of all of these things. They have no idea that the thing that they're calling capitalism is just the byproduct of having a stable democracy. They think that they've coined the phrase about how all of this prosperity happened. This prosperity happened if you took Western civilization. Every time you lift the people out of poverty, at any time in Western civilization, before the Dark Ages would fall, as soon as people moved to subsistence or better, art began to thrive, science began to thrive, society began to thrive. When you lift people out of poverty, you get them educated, they can put them on the moon. They've confused all of this advancement with capitalism. It never had anything to do with their stupid theories. Right. If we allow economics to die today, we can go back to building our society. The advancement of our society has never had anything to do with economists. They are liars and they're frauds. I once called in the Sam Cedar show, the majority report. He's a grifter. He's a grifter and a con artist.
You think so?
But anyway, yeah. Oh, I know so.
Why you think that? Before you go on, you gotta like at least briefly tell us why.
Okay, so I was a regular caller on the show for a couple of years. Maybe I called 24 times. And so I explained some things to him about government and economics and all that. And I laid down the same dare to him that I lay down to everybody. And oh, by the way, people are going to blow you up about my phone call because this touches their nerves. They need to believe economics is real. So what I laid down for Sam, I said, look, if you prove me wrong, I'll eat crow or whatever. But the next time you have an economist, because he can get guests on the show, the next time you have an economist, I want you to ask them what economic theories can they use to build a stable democracy? And I said, that's a trick question because they're going to tell you right away that governments are about power and the distribution of power, and they only study the distribution of goods and services. They have no idea what makes a democracy work. They're running around giving advice about politics and government and getting people to believe in them rather than what to support to make our society better, what to support to end poverty, what to support to allow us to have prosperity in this country again. They're running around doing all of that because they're useful to authoritarians. They are useful idiots. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Sam brought somebody on within 2 days, and I wish you had seen his face when the person said, I had never seen this person before, but you can go to any Ivy League school and ask all of them, and they will tell you, we do not study that. We study the distribution of goods and services. And when that person said it, Sam's jaw dropped. And then he went on to pretend like it never happened and kept peddling the same crap. He's a liar. He's a fraud. He's a grifter. I know, and one thing I hate about racist people, one thing I really hate is when they assume that they know who we are based on something superficial. So he likes to talk about people behind their backs. So after he hung up the phone with me once, the last time I called, he told his audience that I was a privileged, what do you say, because of my privileged status, and he insinuated that I was white. I'm black. But my thing is, I'm not only black, but let me tell you, both my parents are black. All four of my grandparents are black.
So you
and you too know what that means. What does that mean, fellas? Thank you. Except I'm high yellow. But you can't tell that on the phone. But yeah, I wear it proudly. I don't have, my parents wear it proudly. We've always been black and proud of being black. But for him, the last time I called to tell his audience that was white and privileged, I'm just educated and bright. But you can't be educated and bright and be black, obviously. So he thinks, obviously, to the racist. So my last discussion with him, when he's yelling at everybody because we don't want to vote for Hillary if she becomes the nominee, he's a piece of crap. Piece of crap. I haven't said that out loud. Oh my God, he's garbage. My name is Lynn in Chicago. Let me say that out loud right now so he'll know which one I am. Him and Michael Brooks. Spin me off, baby.
Maybe I'll call into his show and see what his face looks like if I drop your name.
He might remember you.
I know Jason.
My name is Lynn. He will remember me. He will remember me.
Jason, somebody who Jason from Detroit. I watch his videos. He hadn't put one out in a while, but yeah. He watches his show. He has a feelings about too.
Oh, no, I didn't mind anything else other than the fact that him telling his audience that I wasn't black. Honest to God.
I'll see.
That was the
here's
lowest.
The thing. Like that, I think what he was experiencing there is a little bit of cognitive dissonance, and so I think the easiest I guess
no
mental
excuses,
trap
buddy.
door. No, I don't know. Like I guess you say he's grifting as a fraud, but I think sometimes it's hard to tell between a grifter and a fraud and somebody that just doesn't want to acknowledge they're just wrong on something.
No, he is totally a grifter. He's totally a grifter because he'll say he's on. I love the Ring of Fire show that was started by Mike Papantonio and Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
So I was a fan, a follower, supporter, subscriber of that before Sam came in after the guy left before, right? I forget the other guy's name he was good to. But Sam is not the same on there as he is on his show. Because Ring of Fire has a different agenda. Sam says whatever he has to say to be able to show up on MSNBC. So he pummeled us about when we were trying to explain why we were not going to be able to vote for Hillary if she were to become the candidate. And we were explaining that to him before, like my last call was before the New York primary, because I was saying the New York primary is a big deal because if he's not the nominee, they need to be thinking about the fact that they may be nominating an unelectable candidate. And because I was not going to be able to vote for her. And he was shouting us down. And he had to do that because at the time, to be on MSNBC, you had to be all in for Hillary.
Well, yeah, he and others, once she became the nominee, or they definitely said that we had to vote for.
No, this is before she became the nominee. This is before the New York primary. I remember that specifically because I literally came home for lunch because I can walk home for lunch. I came home for lunch and called on my lunch break for that call. I remember that. It was before the New York primary. And now he's acting like he's a Green Party supporter, I think. He's such a liar and a grifter.
Oh, what?
He's a liar and a grifter.
I've never heard him. Green Party.
I've never heard him kind of advocate for a Green Party candidate.
That would
I think
be
he is.
surprising to me.
You think so? I don't know. I watch the show. I don't
think he's that. I don't think he goes that far.
I don't know if he goes that far.
Well, okay, that's okay. Maybe that's too far, but he's not like all in with the establishment anymore.
True.
He's pretending like he's not. He's pretending like he's not all in with the establishment when he was all in with the establishment for the 2 years that I was calling his show. I know he knows who I am. What a douchebag. What a douchebag.
I know, yeah. She's
out,
on one right now.
She's on one right now. You out for vengeance.
All right, well, Lynn,
anyway.
we got to go.
Okay, that was fun, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you calling in. Always good to hear from you. You do.
I was sleepy, but now you guys woke me up. You woke me up.
Talking about Sam, man. Got your blood
yeah.
racing a little bit.
Yeah. All right, good night, everybody.
All right, thank you, Lynn.
Great show. Bye.
All right.
I mean, there might be some credence to what she says because he was, doing a lot of appearances on MSNBC. Now, at what capacity, that could be challenged. I mean, the few times I did see him on MSNBC, he wasn't like an unchallenging contributor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He was there to challenge him. But, I think
my perspective is different because I wasn't watching them back then.
I
wasn't watching. 2016, I was not watching them. So my perspective really about him is only from probably like mid 2017 until now.
True.
So I've heard. I did hear about his support for Hillary Clinton and this and that, but I didn't really watch him. So
yeah, I know there's going to be some people that I watch and I like that, other people who are like on my same kind of have the same kind of political like agenda that I have. Mm-hmm. I like them, but they don't. There's some people that, like Jimmy Dore. I don't. Yeah. I'm not in the business of like, hey, you shouldn't like this other person.
True.
So I mean, I don't.
All right, we got a caller from the 661 area code. You're on the air live with LTMB.
Hi, it's Trudy.
Hey, Trudy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I just was listening to Lynn, and I have to say, I don't care what you call our financial situation, if it's an economy or a system or, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. What I care about is the Green New Deal is going to supply jobs for human beings, and that will give them their own personal economic success. Mm-hmm. And saying we don't have an economic system or that economy is not the right word, I don't know. It just doesn't help me.
Yeah, look, I understand what you're saying, and I think most people that believe like you do or like we do, I similar to you. I don't care. I don't care about the language. I know it's more important for established members of the government to talk about the economy and people that just blindly support them as well. Hey, look at these numbers. The economy is doing well, and that's capitalism for you, and this and that. I don't buy into that whatsoever. I could care less what they're saying. Really, what I care about are the policies that are put into place that makes people's lives better. Not the rich and powerful. I'm talking about just everyday middle class poor people that can't afford medication and to go to a doctor or food or clothing, stuff like that. I care about those policies that will seek to make their standard of living better. That's what I care about. I get where, what Lynn was talking about with the, adopting the language of the oppressor and, talking about kind of, poking holes in this whole idea that we have an economic system and this and that. I get what she's talking about.
I think she's talking about she's talking about like a broader picture, and a broader outlook of like the systems that we buy into. Mm-hmm. I think that is a different conversation than talking about what things in society we can do for harm reduction. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what I think Trudy is getting at here. Harm reduction. I think that's a completely different conversation. Both can be right.
Or could increase.
Yeah, where Lynn is coming from is just a more a broad discussion about the kind of the I guess the illusion of the system
The
in
way
general.
politicians
That's it.
and
Yeah.
establishment
So I
should
think
talk
those are
about
two
it.
different conversations.
right.
Like both can be right. I think she's just kind of taking the conversation to the stratosphere while at the same time we do need to talk about policies that will contribute to harm reduction. That's it. That doesn't mean what Lynn is talking about is not valid. It doesn't mean what you're talking about is not valid either. It's just coming from different vantage points. And
I'm not
addressing
saying it's
two
not
different
valid,
points.
and
No,
you know,
I
what
was
she
actually-
said makes sense.
Okay,
But it has no relationship to everyday life in my life. It has, I mean, you know, they talk about economic boom because the stock market's up and because the rich are getting richer.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean anything.
Anyway.
To you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
All right. Love you.
Thank you, Trudy.
Lisa. In principle, I agree with you. We don't need Band-Aids. Oh, well, we do need Band-Aids, but a Band-Aid is not the solution.
Yeah.
But Band-Aids help. Like when you cut yourself and
It's
you
a
need to cover that
permanent
thing up,
Band-Aid.
then you do need a
Mash,
Band-Aid.
not
That may not solve the issue
need
of why you're getting cut, but you're going to need a Band-Aid.
We need a bonding agent.
But I mean, I do think it's important to recognize those things are Band-Aids and maybe not solutions. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be honest, most of what Bernie Sanders offers as policies are Band-Aids. But you know,
I mean, look, I don't know that you can.
We wouldn't need them if we didn't have a system of inequality.
But see, I don't know if anything can be. I don't know if anything can be considered not a Band-Aid because things can always be corrupted. Things can always be removed, weakened, lessened, stuff like that. I mean, they're temporary fixes, really, because there's always new ways for people to be devious. You know what I'm saying? There's always new ways for people to be evil and greedy and just, like I said, and just go out for their own, go out for themselves. Try to make their situation better than the majority of people that are in the nation. So, look, I think we can get to a point where most people are given a chance to succeed. I think we can get there. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it will last forever. Doesn't mean that it will last forever. Definitely not. That's what I consider a Band-Aid.
Well, it depends on like the wound. Like if it's a bullet hole, like Lisa says, a Band-Aid won't work, or you know, it won't last for long.
We got a whole bunch of bullet holes.
Yeah, we got a bunch of bullet holes.
We got a whole bunch of bullet holes, man. Straight up. But yeah, I don't like you were trying to make the point too. I don't really think what Lynn and Trudy were conveying were really opposite. You know, it was kind of two different ways of two different points really being made. But like Trudy was saying that I don't really care about the optics of what capitalism is doing for us, if capitalism is a thing or not. You know, mixed economy, this and that. I do not care. The talk about the economy means absolutely nothing for regular day people, except when regular day people do the work for these politicians that are, proposing that the economy is working so well for everybody else, even though they can't even feel it. But we know that happens all the time. And really, that's what Lynn was saying. Really, I mean, whatever this economy is supposed to be is bullshit.
Oh no, I pretty much agree with like her premise that it's bullshit. But even when it's bullshit, like there's got to be something that our representatives do.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And she did talk about economic policies.
Yeah.
She did talk about.
In the meantime, I think she's just saying, keep your head on straight and have a broader perspective even outside of that, even though it is a reality like Trudy was trying to point out. This is a reality we live in, so we have to do something, but we have to keep our head on straight and recognize that the whole thing needs to be torn down.
No doubt, man. No doubt. White noise in the audio. I don't know what that is. Hope it's gone.
It's probably the vent. It's probably the fan. I think it's the fan from the computer. Because if I can hear it, because I can hear it now, that means our mics are picking it up.
Yeah, for some reason this computer is like running. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
You know, usually that only happens when two things are happening. Raw Story is one of my tabs.
I hate Raw Story's fine. But yeah, I noticed that whether it be on my desktop, on a laptop, or on the phone, there are so many ads and scripts running.
Oh my gosh,
it's like
man.
that page is so slow.
It's crazy, man. If I have Raw Story open, the computer will run like crazy. Or if we're editing the videos, that's the only times it sounds like a fan. Yeah, okay. Well, we moved it away a little bit. It is working a little overtime right now. All right. Look, that's about all we have for you tonight. Again, tomorrow is due to be a scene. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I believe it is going to be public, I believe. So that's when the House Judiciary Committee is going to make, I guess, opening arguments about these 2 articles of impeachment. So just more drama, no doubt, more drama. Don't know how it's going to go. This is something new. Definitely historic. What else? Anything else on the horizon, man? Tomorrow, I don't think anything is coming into my head. Anything we haven't addressed maybe that we want to go into tomorrow, or it's gonna happen tomorrow. Can't think of anything.
Not at the moment.
Can't think of anything. Okay, Gene has a question.
I see. We haven't been really paying attention to the comments.
Yeah.
Not even to start the show, we really didn't look at it, the comments, but we already knew.
Yeah. This is a coincidence.
Yeah,
right?
It's a coincidence. We do not
always a coincidence.
We do not John Witherspoon coordinate.
No, we do not.
Coordinate. We don't.
The late great.
John
Witherspoon, man. No, we don't.
We don't John Witherspoon
over here. And honestly, man, I saw you even before I put on the shirt. I didn't realize you had a purple shirt on. I didn't even look at it. I didn't even look at it at all. So, whatever. No, we do not coordinate. Let's see. Anything else? Let's see.
What is that? Survivor Mary, you silly.
Crazy, man.
That's funny. And I think it's like, if we're talking about looking at broad perspectives while at the same time dealing with an immediate situation, I think this is a good time to talk about the impeachment inquiry. Like, I'm not looking at this situation as some sort of event to save democracy.
Oh, hell
Just to
no.
hold one person accountable for what they did.
Yeah. See, but the Democratic Party is doing, of course, they have to sell that. Though.
Yeah.
They have to sell
That's one thing I was like, I could do without. Like, I can do without the language, secure our elections, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh.
Look, you know what? I don't even fault them for saying that, man. Look, I can do without it, just like you. It doesn't mean anything to me. We have to secure our democracy and look.
And for free and fair elections. I was like,
come on now, come on. Of course, many people would say that's a very hypocritical position for the Democratic Party to take.
Like, boom.
They are not the Republican Party. There's a difference. A lot of people say 2 sides of the same coin. No, sorry. No. Sorry. There is a clear difference between the Republican and Democratic parties.
Democrats, let's see. Democrats want to be inclusive and want everyone to be a part of this imperialist state. And then Republicans just want white people and conservatism and right-wing populism and white men
Yes.
and maybe a few black people supporting that.
Yes.
But for the most part, the representation, they want white males to be the primary representation of this imperial apparatus.
Right.
That's pretty much the difference. These Democrats want, diversity.
Yes.
So they want everybody to be a part.
Look,
of
just a few days ago, no, this was last week. I forgot what, I think it's HR 5, I think it is. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but the Democratic Party had that press conference about the Man, where am I going here? The about elections, but this was because the Supreme Court weakened.
Oh
it.
yeah.
What am I talking about?
Are you talking about
I can't get it right now. The
Citizens United
Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act. Yeah. For some reason I couldn't get it, but yeah, the Voting Rights Act. So yeah, they had a press conference on. It may have been Friday or something like that. But yeah, they had a press conference about that, in which they were, and they had representative from South Carolina speaking, of course, Clyburn, also Mr. Biscuits, Mr. Butter Biscuits, Butter Biscuits, John, you know what I'm talking about, right?
You stupid dog.
They had him speak. But anyway, it was that's something that the Democratic Party will do. The Republican Party is not interested in the Voting Rights Act at all. It's a non-starter. Sorry. When you're talking about democracy,
so like the Democrats are like kind of they want like a Roman Empire, but like Republicans they want like a Third Reich kind of empire. Like because Romans they don't care.
Well, like you said, they're more inclusive.
They're taking over everybody. Everybody
Yes.
can be a part of this shit.
Yeah.
It's still imperialism, though.
It is still imperialism, no doubt. It is still imperialism, no doubt. But like I said, it's not so much of an effort to like, I guess, keep people down by stepping on their throats. Not so much. Not like the Republican Party does. Definitely the Democratic Party is, like you said, the party of the elite. So is the Republican Party, no doubt.
But is that like a matter of party, or
No,
just a
it's
matter
not
of like the condition we're in, and just the parties kind of, I don't know, represent that? I don't know if it's something that the two parties can even avoid based on how the system is set up.
No.
That's just how it's set up.
The one thing that is familiar in both parties is the almighty dollar. I mean, that's the one thing that is familiar. So, I mean, if in that vein you say there are two sides of the same coin, then fine. And only that vein. But there are many other differences, and there are stark differences that separate the two parties.
But again, it's like we can talk about these parties in vague terminology, but one thing we have to acknowledge is that these parties are filled with human beings who came up in this world, came up in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the beliefs that our representatives have about this world and a lot of the attitudes that they have are shared by a lot of regular folks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
the Republican Party is more controlling. The Republican the Republican Party doesn't hold on.
Just in a different way.
The Republican Party doesn't want you to have. They want to outlaw sodomy. You won't see that on the Democratic side.
True.
I agree that in different ways, the Democratic Party is about control, no doubt, because this whole world is about control. It's all about keeping people at bay, like, hey, no, stay in your place. No, we're going to make the decisions for you straight up. So in different ways, yeah, they are about control, but it's different control. And it's about who can be at the top as well, like you were saying. The Democratic Party, I don't believe they care about who is at the top, just as long as there is a top. Republican Party, it seems as though it matters who's at the top, because if you just look at the current Congress, how many women are Republicans? How many black people
There's
are
like
Republicans?
none. There's only one, I think, right?
Well, in the House now, there is Will Hurd.
But
he's retired.
He's retired. And then the Senate, we have one. And that's
from this state.
From your state.
That's Scott.
Scott, yes.
Yeah, Senator Scott. So after Will Hurd retires next year, it'll only be one, unless some black Republican somehow makes it into the next Congress, which I don't anticipate. I don't anticipate that at all. All the new women that were voted into Congress last year, virtually all of them were Democrats. Virtually all of them were Democrats. Actually, They weren't all Democrats. No, I think Stefanik new? No, I can't say that. I don't think
she just got. When did she get elected?
I'm not sure. I don't think they were all Democrats, but like I said, the majority of them were. So, like I said, there's differences between the two parties. Republican mistresses can get abortions though. That clip. I don't have it, of course, but Donald Trump at is it the March for Your Lives rally? The thing is it March for Our Lives? Is it the March?
Oh, where he said something like something like there are babies that are being born. What did he say?
Yeah, there are babies being born in the 9th month of
we got to stop that.
We got to stop that.
I was like, oh man, he misread that teleprompter in the worst way.
Oh,
we got to stop this, man. They in the stomach for way too long.
And I saw so many comments on Twitter like, yeah, you know what? That was me. And actually, that was me a few times. You know, several times. I had a baby in the 9th month of my pregnancy. Yep, that was me.
Rare.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Rare.
Oh man. Also, you know what? I didn't show this. I forgot to show this tweet, but as we were talking about the the impeachment proceedings and talking about the articles of impeachment being drafted by the Democratic Party, of course, one being abuse of power, the other being obstruction of Congress, and excuse me. Of course, a lot of this is surrounding that call that President Trump had with President Zelensky of Ukraine. And there's been a lot that has been made of it, of course, because now we're at the articles of impeachment. But the whole notion that President Trump asked for a political favor, a personal political favor of his to help him in his reelection bid. And we know what it said. It says, I would like you to help us out, though, right? I would like you to do us a favor, help us out, right? Well, we know that it was actually like help me out. Everybody knows that it was a personal favor. Even Rudy Giuliani says knows it's a personal favor because he said it wasn't foreign policy. So even he knows it and has stated it. He didn't know what he was doing, of course, but he said it was not foreign policy. My work I was doing was to benefit my client, President Donald Trump.
Not the United States.
Not the United States.
Not
right?
the United States.
So anyway, we know even though President Trump said us, I want you to do us a favor. I would like you to do us a favor, though. We know it was for him. It was me. But Donald Trump on Twitter, this is what he's trying to say, okay? Read the transcripts. Us is a reference to USA, not me.
Oh. So it was just like he meant us with like uppercase.
Yeah.
He meant uppercase us, meaning US. Yeah. It was short for USA.
Yeah.
USA.
Yeah. USA. It wasn't him. No, it wasn't him. See, all you people out there trying to understand what I meant, trying to read into my words. What about me? What about me?
So Giuliani is not Donald Trump's personal attorney. He is America's attorney. Remember, he was called America's mayor. He went from America's mayor to
the nation's
attorney.
Oh yeah, my bad. The nation's attorney. The nation's personal attorney. The
nation has a personal attorney because Donald Trump is the country. He is the nation. Don't you know that? So whatever work Rudy Giuliani was doing for Donald Trump, he was doing for us. Here to set the record straight.
That is sad, though, that he has to make that announcement on Twitter like, hey, it's not about me, man. It's about us. Why is everybody bugging out? Not about me. Walls closing in, man.
Closing in.
What I wonder though is, and I really do. Look, I didn't even expect things to move this fast. Okay, I didn't expect them to go this fast even, and we talked about that on the last show as well. Like, is this the best strategy? Because there are some other things that have not played out yet that maybe would have aided them. And their
financial records.
Yeah.
Maybe they can, I think they're allowed to add.
Maybe so.
So maybe they're hoping that stuff, pans out.
Right.
And they can add it.
What I am wondering, though, is when it does get to the Senate trial, is there going to be new information? Are there going to be even new witnesses that testify? I.e.,
that's possible.
Lev Parnas.
Oh gosh, yo.
And shoot, by that time, we don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It's thought that the Senate trial could start, the first month of the new year in January. By that time, is there going to be a ruling on Bolton and Kupperman? I don't know.
All this stuff is still up in the air.
Yeah.
And could have a lot of impact on this whole process.
So, yeah, man, this is far from done. And I'll even go so far as to say, as far as a given, which way it's going to go. I know Republicans are out there, saying, hey, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. I still don't know, man. I'm not convinced that there's really no way right now. I'm not convinced. There's a lot of things that can still happen, new facts that can emerge. I'm not sold that Trump is going to be gifted and out by the Republican Party. I'm not sold on that yet. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Thank you to everybody that joined us for tonight's program. We appreciate it. To our callers, thank you for calling in. Lynn and Trudy, good to hear from you. In the super chat section, D. Scully with a message. I don't really think the Dems are putting their backs into this impeachment. The question is why? I don't know that I have the same idea. The one thing that I will say, and I said before, is they need to address that question, or they need to address that point. The defense that the Republican Party is coming with is that, hey, the Ukrainians delivered the aid without, no. The U.S. delivered the aid without the Ukrainians having to do anything about the announcement of investigations. Okay, so if that's true, then it would have been improper for the investigations to have been announced. So then it's improper for President Trump to set along this effort for that to actually happen. Trump was trying to make that happen, so that was improper, right? Like, they need to make that case. So that's the only, that's really the one thing that I think is lacking from the Democratic argument right now. Django Fett with a super sticker, which I don't even know what that is.
That looks very weird. It looks like a hippopotamus.
It does, but I'm saying, what is he doing?
It's a hippopotamus, like.
Looks like he's like
pop locking.
It looks like he's pumping a super soaker. Or
it look like he's. I don't know. That looks like maybe a wave. It looks like a pop lock.
I don't know what that is, man.
It's like some pop locking or something. Like I don't know what he's doing.
I don't know.
Like he's pop locking.
Don't know what that is. All right. Damn. I hope we don't have any others that we can't see down there, because I sure enough. I know okay, so we have Gear Randon. Thank you very much, Gear Randon, for consistently supporting us and supporting us financially. Hope there's not another one down there, because I definitely can't see it. I don't know why this happens. It doesn't get any better. I don't understand why this. I can't scroll.
It doesn't look like.
Yeah, it doesn't
Gear
look
Randon
like
usually is a silent contributor anyway, so I'm just gonna guess that it.
Yeah. Well, I can't scroll. If anybody else is down there, anybody else that has contributed tonight, thank you very much, but I definitely can't see it. All right. Of course, a shout out to all of our patrons on patreon.com. We love all of you, and we appreciate you contributing to LTMB consistently every single month. If you would like to become a patron of ours, it's very simple. Just go to patreon.com/LTMB. Other than that, I believe that's all we have for you tonight. Okay, so there was, of course, a lot we had to get through tonight, but we did so. Who said they want to hear from Bolton? Slarty Bartfast. Slarty Bartfest wants to hear from Bolton. I want to hear from Bolton too.
Who?
Oh,
Slarty Bartfast.
Yeah. I want to hear about the drug deal. Straight up.
Yeah, because, he has to be asked. He has to be asked. Like,
and another.
Why'd
thing,
you call it a drug deal?
Right.
Why didn't you want to be a part of it?
It's going to be a real bad day if he does testify because, see, Fiona Hill has already testified, man. You think he's going to
go against her?
I just don't see that happening, man.
Yo, like...
He might be an evil some bitch.
but he ain't that, though.
Nah.
Because Fiona Hill ain't nothing to play with, though.
And see, it wasn't... And another thing, it's not like he would... I don't think he harbors any like ill feelings towards Fiona Hill anyway, because he was the one that told her to go to the council.
Go to the council, like, yo, I ain't gonna be a part of this, but I'm not. Look here, I'm not sticking my neck out.
Hell no.
Because I don't want to, rock the boat. You do it. You rock the boat.
Yeah, I want to hear from John Bolton, man. This might be the only time in history I want to hear from John Bolton. This might be the only case where I actually want to hear him speak.
Isn't it crazy how, based on who we know John Bolton is and his history, how even he didn't want to be a part of this? Like, how you
turn off John Bolton?
How corrupt do you have to be to turn off John Bolton?
Of all people, man. Of all people, you turned off John Bolton. Sent him running, like, nah. I ain't with you on this. I'm out.
You got to be really dirty.
He left September 9th or 10th?
Yeah,
I forgot which one it was.
Yeah, around that time. Coincidental. That's a coincidence.
Oh, man. All right. D. Scully again with the fresh shades. Appreciate that. We'll be back on Thursday, of course, 7 p.m., same time. I think that's all we got.
You said what?
I said Thursday.
Oh, Thursday. Yeah.
What I think?
I thought you said 7:30. Oh,
nah,
what?
Thursday, 7 p.m. Y'all ain't getting me. Oh man. Look. I know he doesn't want to testify. Oh no, he don't want to testify. I don't think so.
He doesn't want to, but I would say.
But I think he will spill it.
I will say though, if he does testify, it'll be after his book comes out. You know what I'm saying? He's that type of person that'll want, the eyes on his book first and to be able to get paid from it.
Unless the judge says, go testify. If the judge says go testify before the Senate trial actually ends, then he's gonna go testify, and so is Kupperman. Like I said, a lot of things can happen, so we'll just see. But again, thank you everybody who joined us for this program, who conversed in the chat section, and who contributed to our program as well. So appreciate it all. We'll see you in a couple of days. Until then, peace out. Have a good one. Have a good night. We'll see you.